What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday night. And boy, we're going to have a party tonight. Partying on a Sunday night. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. And tonight we're going to watch we're going to watch Dawn of the Dead first and foremost, but we're going to be watching the 35 millimeter open matte version of the US theatrical cut, which is something that we discussed a couple of weeks ago on a stream. Um, Somebody brought it up in the comments and asked if there was a way to see that, and I wasn't sure. And sure as shit, as soon as almost immediately, I got a message from a buddy of mine, John Bulow. Oh, he's in here tonight. It sent me a link to it. Apparently, it's available on YouTube, hiding in plain sight. It's pretty cool. So we're gonna sit down. We're gonna watch that tonight. The link to the movie is down in the comments to watch along. So yeah, we're gonna be doing that tonight. Got a lot of people in the comments already tonight. Hope you guys are doing well. A lot of new names. This is the first time I've done quite a few watch alongs on this channel, of quite a few different different movies, some different ones. A lot of the John Russo stuff we've been watching lately. We watched the Vampire, the Italian cut of Martin. But this is the first time on this channel that we're actually going to sit down and watch the one, the only Dawn of the Dead. So I'm pretty excited to do that, especially this 35 millimeter open matte cut. It's a different way to view the film. Like it's still the same movie, but you're gonna see more of the movie. Basically, is what it is. It's pretty damn cool. Let's see. Like I said, got a lot of people in the comments here. Dave Webb, oh hell yes. Mr. Daft, RNG, oh sick. I may have to catch this later. I guess these are from earlier today. Walking Dude, what's up, man? Good to have you in here. Lunchbox, what? No love for Day of the Dead? Not tonight, but next week's show will be all about Day of the Dead. So you'll want to tune in for that one. I got something pretty fun, pretty cool planned for next week's show. Walking Dude says Day of the Dead is all right. Not many kills in Day of the Dead, though. Yeah, maybe not as many kills in Day of the Dead, but the kills that we do get in Day of the Dead are some of the best in horror film history. So for Day of the Dead, it's all about I think quality over quantity, I guess. Lunchbox agreeing there. Let's see who else we got now. Cinephile Sanity, Sean, what's up, man? The dead will walk. They'll watch along. I guess so. They have come. It's almost like the zombies to the mall tonight. Pretty cool. Daph says, I rewatched this one so much lately and I'm still ready to go again. That's the story of my life, sir. Dawn of the Dead. I mean, if you're new to this channel, it's my all-time favorite movie, period. I think it's, in my opinion, the greatest movie ever made, for so many reasons. But glad to have you in here, man. Synth, what's up, my man? Good buddy. Hey there. So glad this is the theatrical version since the Romero music layers and edits really sell it. Yeah, I mean that's one of the best parts about the US theatrical cut. Although my preferred cut is the extended cut. That's the version that I grew up on, because when I first discovered it, that had just gotten kind of re-released and rediscovered, kind of in the late '90s. But yeah, I do agree. The music cues, quite a few of the music cues in the theatrical cut, I much prefer than the one in the extended version. Let's see. Don't think you've. Let's see. Daff says, "Don't think you've seen this particular cut." It's the same cut as it. Like I said, it's the U.S. theatrical cut, but it's the open matte, which, like I said, you're going to see more of it. You're going to see things. You're going to see crew members off to the side that you've never seen. You're going to see all kinds of stuff. It's pretty damn cool. Speaking of the man himself, and he will appear, John Bulow. What's up, man? Good to have you in here. Thanks for hipping me to this. I had no idea that this was out and available. Yeah, he sent me the link to it on Facebook. Some guy on Facebook. I have no idea who this guy is. I don't know what the story is, how he has this in his possession. I'm sure somebody out there probably knows a little bit more about it than I do. But it's the YouTube channel Cleet Ronson, I believe is the guy's name on there. There's no description, no anything. I mean, it was just kind of put up there. He's got all kinds of open matte stuff on there, but he actually had the full film open matte version of Dawn of the Dead on there for people to watch. Daff says, uncropped is new for me, so I'm super psyched. Yeah, it's pretty cool. They did that. They did an open matte version on the Argento cut on the box set. that Midnight Factory put out a few years back. That was the first time I saw it. But it's of the Argento cut, and this is the US theatrical cut, so it's got different scenes, and of course it's a little bit longer, so there's more to see. So since there's any funny observations right off the top in this open map version to look for, like I said, you're gonna see there you'll see some crew members. Because open mat, it's pretty much just to explain, I guess, and as the best I can in layman's terms, I guess, is that what they shoot is like this. It's basically square, but when they format it for the screen or whatever, they kind of cut off a little bit here, cut off a little bit there. So you're gonna get to see all this and all this. That's the best way I can describe it. But yeah, keep an eye out. You'll see all kinds of pretty cool stuff. Cinephile Sandy says, I don't know if I've seen this version either. No one ever talks about it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of well, it's just one of those things. It's like it's never been really released anywhere. Like I said, the guy that put it up on YouTube, I have no idea how he got in possession of it or what the story is behind it. Um, but like I said, it's still the same US cut, the theatrical cut that we all grew up and fell in love with. But like I said, you're just going to see more of it. 1911 Guitar Dude, what's up, man? Good to have you in here. Hi, everyone. Excited to watch the 35 millimeter open map version. This looks like the most opened up I've seen, so it will be fun to see what appears. Yeah, like I said, you'll see all kinds of fun stuff. Let's see. Since says tonight maybe the 220th time I've watched this classic, possibly more. I mean, it's at least that for me at this point. I think if I really sat down and kind of thought, there's no way to calculate that over the time. What is the runtime of this version? I think it's like I said, it's the same version as the US cut, so it's about a little over 2 hours. I think it's 2 hours and 4 minutes. There's pieces of the film in this version that was posted that like there's little snippets here and there that got cut out for what reason or another, because I think it's actually from an actual 35 millimeter print. So it's a little shorter than the US cut, but it's just because there's some unintentional cuts here and there, I guess. John says, I'm fairly certain it's someone that has a print of it that scanned it. Don is missing about 2 minutes, unfortunately. Yeah, that's what I mentioned. And it's not full open mat since the left side is cut out for a bit for sound. Yeah, that's true. I did notice that. You let me know that on Facebook. You pointed that out, and I was like, yeah, that does look like so. So on one side, I think it's like excuse me, like the right side of the screen is going to be completely open. The other side, there's like a little bit missing off the side, but it's still pretty wide open. Hearst Hill, what's up, my man? Good to have you in here. Good to see you again. And so yeah, I think I'm pretty much caught up on all of the as many of the comments as I can so far here. We're gonna get into it here in just a second. Like I said, before we do that, there's one bit of Romero news that I wanted to talk about, and that is the 4K release that is coming out of Bruiser over in the UK. Excuse me, I just had a coffee, so I'm a little phlegmy right now. I apologize. But yeah, there's a 4K release of Bruiser coming out here in the UK. I think July 22nd is the release date. The pre-orders are up right now. So I've got mine ordered. It's coming. Like I said, I just picked up the Studio Canal Blu-ray that they just put out over in France. So I did just get that one, but the fact that this is coming out in 4K, I had to get it, and the extras are pretty insane too. I'm gonna pull this up here on the screen. We'll go ahead and look at this and go through it real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get into the movie. So yeah, there we go. So yeah, right now it's selling US $27. Not a bad price for a 4K. I mean, Indicator is the name of the studio that's putting it out. I've never bought anything from them. I don't really know too much about them. But like I said, it's up for pre-order now. It's limited. I think there are, let me see how many this is limited to. Limited edition of 7,000 individually numbered units, 5,000 4Ks and 2,000 Blu-rays for the UK. So it is limited, so get it while you can, because like I said, like we talked about before, I do know that there's a US version, a US release coming soon. But this is, this is first, so so people like me, I got to go ahead and get this. But looking at these special features, this is the thing that really sells it for me. What really made this like an instant buy as soon as I saw it is that it is a 4K HDR restoration. UHD presented by and Dolby Vision and HDR10 compatible. Original 5.1 surround sound and stereo audio tracks. And of course, the audio commentary with writer director George Romero and producer Peter Grunwald. And that's the same commentary that was included on the original DVD. So it's nothing new there. Unfortunately, I do know that when the U.S. version does come out, there will be at least one new audio commentary for it. It won't include George, unfortunately, for unfortunate reasons. Obviously, unfortunate reasons. Um, but from what I've heard, there's some pretty cool pretty cool people lined up for it. Now this is one of that really interests me. An archival interview with George A. Romero from 2014, previously unheard audio recording with the legendary filmmaker. I'm very curious to see what that is and what that's from. Um, is it just an overall interview with George on his career? Like I said, I don't know how long it is. Doesn't say how long of an interview it is, or is it just strictly on Bruiser? I'm not sure, but I'm very very interested in hearing that. Um, like I said, I do know Michael Felcher, of course, who of Red Shirt Pictures, who does every special feature on every DVD, Blu-ray, whatever you can think uh, of George's work that have been put out. He did sit down with George shortly. It wasn't 2014. I think it was a little later than that. So I don't think this is what this is. But he did sit down with George and go through his entire filmography and his entire catalog and watched it with George. They sat and watched it. And then after every movie, they would sit down and record an interview with George for about an hour, hour and a half, just talking specifically about each and every one of his films. So I don't know what he plans on doing with that at any point, but it's like I said, I don't think this is what is going to be included because I don't think Felcher's involved in this project specifically, and I don't see him just kind of handing that over to a different company. But interesting nonetheless to see what this is. And of course, an interview with Jason Fleming from 2024. This is really interesting to me. The actor discusses his lead role in working with Romero, and that really interests me too because you never really I haven't. I mean, I think there's like a behind the scenes thing that was shot when they were filming Bruiser, and he talked about it a little bit. But outside of that, I've never really heard him talk too much about this film and working with George. So that'll be really interesting, especially since it's a new interview. Interview with Dr. Chud from 2024. The former Misfits drummer talks about the band's appearance in the film and its contribution to the soundtrack. That's going to be interesting. A huge Misfits fan. The Worm That Turned, 2024. Kim Newman, which I'm a fan of Kim Newman. I've seen him in multiple documentaries and stuff like that, talking about what did I see him in back in the day? I think I know him because he's got an interesting look. I'll say that. But the author of Nightmare Movies contextualizes Bruiser within the context of Romero's career. I'm interested in hearing that. I think that'll be pretty cool. And of course, there's original theatrical trailer, image gallery with promotional and publicity materials, new and improved English subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing, which I'm getting there. I'm getting pretty damn hard of hearing myself, but and I'm one of those people. I don't know. I kind of got this from my fiance when we first met, but she used to watch everything with subtitles. And I was like, why do you got to have subtitles on with it? Do you not speak English? But there's something about it that's kind of nice to it's almost like you're reading the script while watching the film. So it kind of, puts everything into perspective a little better. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't mean to go on that much about subtitles, but whatever. Limited edition exclusive 80-page book with a new essay by Craig Ian Mann, archival interviews and magazine articles, an overview of contemporary critical responses, and full film credits. That will be pretty cool. Just to see, archival interviews and magazine articles and stuff like that from that time, I think would be pretty damn cool. Because I'm old enough to remember specifically when that movie first came out, and it just kind of under the radar. Nobody really talked about it. It was just kind of released, in the dark of night. And I think the first time I saw it, it was on Showtime or something like that, just out of the blue. I was like, holy shit, I didn't even know this was out yet. Because I was expecting it to have somewhat of a theatrical run or something, but and like, yeah, the world premiere. This will be the very first 4K release of Bruiser, obviously. So yeah, very excited. I mean, the shipping, I think you can get it. I would probably check out like Orbit DVD, Diabolic DVD, some places like that to see if they have it. I think that they do. I'm not sure 100% if Diabolic does. I'm fairly certain Orbit does. But I would check that. It might save you a little bit on the shipping, but I just ordered it straight from this website, and the shipping was a little, you're shipping overseas, so, um but all in all, I mean, I'm very, very stoked, to see this coming out in 4K finally, and it seems like we're getting a lot of releases of it now after years of constantly being, "Where's Bruiser? When's Bruiser gonna get a release?" And now we've gotten 2 overseas over the past couple of months, and there's a US one coming soon, so, very excited. And I've heard some people talk about the cover art. I know Uncle Bill over at, Dead Pit was talking about this the other night and, just kinda, "Oh, I hate that," and it's the cover art is actually the original, French poster, I believe, um, and it's kinda one of the only posters of Bruiser that's really available out there, if you look on eBay in terms of, like, promotional materials and stuff from the time. I've seen that one, I've seen some from Japan, I think, but other than that, like, there was really no promotion of the film back in the day, so, um but very cool, very cool. Definitely looking forward to that. Hope you guys pick that up and like I said, it's limited. Pre-order is live now, so if you get a chance to hop on there and pick this up, I think it's the time to do it. TCCK Films, what's up, man? I finally got my Dawn of the Dead fan film posted. I'll definitely check that out, man. Definitely be checking that out after I get this. Got issue here. Okay. Hearst Hill, before I go to work, I'm just gonna say dummies, dummies, dummies. Well, have fun at work, sir. Working this late on a Sunday night, man, that's rough, man. Eesh. I remember those days though. I used to do that back in the day. But really, once you get into it, once you're used to it, it's not that big of a deal. But still, doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem like what the Lord intended. Um, let's see. Since says open matte nerdiness, non-anamorphic films are filmed directly on the entire full frame silent aperture gate. That's very nerdiness. That's very nerdy. When a married print is created, this frame is slightly recropped by the frame line and optical track down to Academy ratio 1.37 by 1. Movie projector then uses an aperture mask to soft mat the Academy frame to the intended aspect ratio 1.85 by 1 or 1.66 by 1. So for all you film nerds out there, that sounded, as Captain Rhodes would say, that sounded like a mouthful of Greek salad to me. Um, I love film, but I don't get into the weeds that much. But for all of you that do, interesting bit of information there from Synth. Al Neary, what's up, man? Hi, Alpha Romero. Nice to catch the stream. Glad you were able to catch it too. Like I said, we're about to watch Dawn of the Dead 35 millimeter open matte version of the U.S. theatrical cut. The link, if you want to watch it, it is available on YouTube for free. So to watch along, check down in the description box below. Click the link, and we'll get it humming here in just a second. Let me go ahead and get all set up here, and we'll get it rolling. So click that link below. I don't know if you want to put me on the background over here and watch it over here, however you want to do it. I'm gonna be watching it all on the same screen here. So, uh, excuse me. So yeah, while I get this all set up here, anybody catch the Kentucky Derby? I'm a Kentucky guy, and I couldn't care less about the Kentucky Derby. I'm gonna tile that to the left. All right. But I did just get finished watching the closest race in NASCAR history, and that's what interests me. But okay, all right. I think I'm all set up here and ready to go. Give you guys a couple more seconds here. We'll go ahead and get it rolling. Like I said, the YouTube channel is Cleet Ronson. Um, so that'll let you know if you're watching the right version here. And it should be a square frame here that you should be on. Ah. All right. Make sure I can see all the comments here. R.O. Pajari, that's a new name, from Bristol, England here. I learned everything I know about the US from Dawn. Masterpiece, awesome. Well, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. You probably came away with that being like, "Oh, those fucking assholes even in death are gonna go clawing at the doors of a J.C. Penney's, desperate for a good sale," which you're not wrong. I mean, if that's the impression you took away from it, then that's pretty spot on. That's pretty spot on, interpretation of what America is all about. Uh All right. Catch catch up here on these comments, then we'll get rolling. Since his damn, I'm going to check out his open mat for The Shining tomorrow. Yeah, like I said, there's all kinds of different stuff on there. I don't know if they're the full films are on there. I've seen like clips here and there from different ones, like Texas Chainsaw and a few others. But yeah, he's got all kinds of stuff on there. Like I said, he must like own. He must have. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the backstory to this. He has to own these prints somewhere. I don't know if he ran like a film lab or a theater. I have no idea. Uh, Pajari says, "No, it's good. Trust me." Well, okay. I'm glad George was able to put the U.S. in a good light. I don't think that's what he was intending to do, but you know. Cressy777. I sold my DVDs player and all my DVDs about 7 years ago. I regret that. The Romero collection was there. Don't do that, man. Don't sell your physical media. Don't be, don't be a slave to the fucking streaming services and only watch what they allow you to watch and uh you gotta get with it, man. You gotta own these things because they're gonna start fucking all the movies that we love. I mean, even Dawn of the Dead, perfect example. You can't hardly stream that or find that anywhere other than YouTube, I guess, because I guess Rubenstein hasn't discovered what YouTube is yet because he won't let any of that stuff come back out on physical media or streaming. But by God, if you want to put it up on YouTube, as we're about to see, he has no issue with it. But yeah, it's kind of like that for a long time. I was like, yeah, everything's streaming now, and I don't really need all my DVDs anymore and stuff. And I'm glad I kept them because, man, and when I go to like, other than every now and then you can rent something on Amazon Prime or something like that, and Shutter every now and then has something cool. But outside of that, man, there's just not a lot for people that like weird shit like me, and I guess most people that are watching this. Not a lot to find, honestly. Alan here says it's a valid portrait of America as any offered by cinema at large, especially compared to Hollywood studio films. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that's the thing that one of the biggest aspects about Dawn of the Dead that I absolutely love is that it feels familiar. So much about it feels familiar. I'm not from Pennsylvania or that part of the world, but living in America, living in mall culture, and I don't know, there's just something about it. Even when I was young and saw it for the first time, it just felt different. It just felt like, man, I feel like I've been here before. The airport, the mall, I feel like I've been here before. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a masterpiece. I can't. I don't need to go on. Don't get me started. Hersil says, Alpha, which version do you like the most? George's version or Dario's version? George's, obviously. Like I said, I think my favorite version is the extended cans cut. Is what it's called. I think it's the 139-minute long cut. Like that's the one I grew up with. I think that's the one that yeah, some people say it's a little slower in parts, and you can cut out this and that. But to me, it kind of helps build the characters and fleshes them out a little more. It kind of there's more to it. Like the second sequence after Roger gets killed and the dinner scene, that second sequence of shopping, I think really hits it home. Like some people think that's very unnecessary, and it kind of is like, oh, why are they doing this again? I've heard that before, but for me, it was just like, oh, it's really hitting home. Like, oh man, we got everything, and now what? Now we're just kind of, spinning our wheels here, doing nothing. Like we're just kind of bullshitting while the world completely falls apart around us. I don't know. There's just so much about that. The dock scene with the cops, Joe Pilato. You see Joe Pilato in that, and I think that adds a little more. I don't know. I've just always preferred that version. But yeah, just in terms of George's or Dario's is fun. I think there's music in Dario's, like it's Goblin wall to wall, and I'm a huge Goblin fan. Um, but at the same time, there's a lot cut out of it. There's a lot missing, and um, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. But I just think overall, as a film, George, you know, the Cannes cut to me is the most complete version. Um, let's see. Dev says like the U.S. version for the Goblin music. Yeah, the way George uses the Goblin music too, because yeah, Dario's is Goblin wall to wall, but at times it just feels a little much, you know. But George lays it in perfectly, I think. Since says when I couldn't get stuff on DVD or laser, I was making DVDs from good VHS tapes over Super VHS output, 400 lines to 240. Don't trust the streams; they are ephemeral. Yes, 100% agree. 100% agree with that. Extended mall hours cut. Yeah, that's a good one too. If you're a diehard fan of Dawn of the Dead, 100%. That's the version you want to get. You want to watch just for the just to be able to see everything that there was available to see in every cut. The music in that's a little wonky because of the the way it was cut together. So I wouldn't, that's not the version that I would show to somebody that you're showing it to for the first time. But if you're a diehard fan, yeah, and I think that's available on YouTube as well. The extended mall hours cut, I think, is what it's called. All right, a couple more comments here, then we're gonna get in the movie. And let's see. Alan Leary says, I'm still holding on to my 20-year-old Anchor Bay Dawn of the Dead box set with the various regional cuts. They're gonna have to pry that out of my hands. Yeah, I mean, especially in the US, like that's the ultimate like edition still, even 20 years later. That box set, the ultimate edition, 100% the ultimate, version to get in the US. They put it out on Blu-ray. They had the US cut on Blu-ray that Anchor Bay did. It's out of print now. It's kind of hard to find, but um it's fine. It's not a great. It's kind of a port. They just kind of took the DVD transfer and just put it to Blu-ray and kind of upscaled it a little bit. But honestly, the quality on the DVD box set on all of those are fantastic. So even to this day, like I was just watching one the other day. I just put it in. I forget what I was watching. But yeah, I put in the DVD, the Anchor Bay Ultimate Edition DVD, and it still looks fine, even on our new technology, our new fancy TVs and shit. Now it still looks pretty damn good. Still holds up. Um, okay, let's go ahead and get into the movie. Starting, it's 2 hours, 4 minutes, 52 seconds long. Dawn of the Dead, 1978, 35 millimeter open matte version, full movie. And I will continue to go through you guys' comments as we watch. Everybody got it queued up and ready to go. I'll give a countdown of 3, 2, 1. Press play now. And on now, hit play, and we'll go ahead and get this sucker rolling. And before we do that, I'm going to crack open an ice cold Iron City beer. Because I'm a man. I'm a man. I like to be the center of attraction. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Press play now. And the red carpet. There's always been questions like, what is Galen dreaming about? Of course, you're in the end of the world. So you're in the book, you would like watching this, you would think like she's dreaming about zombies or something. But in the book, she's actually dreaming about her former life as a married housewife, which I think is interesting. I think that's an interesting take on what the hell she was dreaming of. I do not know who this girl is. The I'm still dreaming girl. I've never heard anybody mention her name or mention who she is. If anybody out there knows who that is, I've heard people say shit like, "Oh, that's the girl from the Bangles." I've heard that she was in the Bangles in the 80s. I'm like, "No, I don't think that's the case." But if anybody knows who that girl is, I have no idea. That's Molly McCloskey. And then of course there's George, and then it's going to pan over here, and you're going to see his beautiful girlfriend at the time, future wife Christine Romero. Anyway, I'm gonna try not to do this as we watch it, or I'm just gonna point out different people. Try to look more big picture. Of course, David Early and David Crawford here, which they had worked together on, I think a theater production at some point before this. So they had worked together before, and I think they said they actually got together before they shot and rehearsed this scene a number of times so we're prepared and used to each other and working together. Now, if you can see here on this open mat, you can see I don't know what the hell you'd call it, but you can see like the little rings around the edges here from the lens where they zoom out. You see and of course in the actual released version gets zoomed in on, so you don't see that. So that was one of the first things that really popped out at me when I first saw an open mat version of Dawn of the Dead is the whatever you'd call that synth. What is that called? Let's see. Pajari says yes, the longer dock scene was essential. If the police are not only done with society but are killing and thieving themselves, this informs just how past saving society had become. 100%, 100% agree. Um, all of the Dawn of the Dead cuts are available on YouTube now. Get them while you can. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, every version. I don't know. I think it is, but I can't remember if I've seen the Argento cut on there. But I'm fairly certain that it is. Everything else is. Uh, Sean, yeah, except the Argento cut and the full frame Argento cut, yeah, that's not available on YouTube anywhere. I was surprised to see this one was. John says she may have been someone that just worked at the station. I think they used a few people that worked there, like Dan. I asked Christine who Dan was, and he was someone that worked at the studio. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've heard people say that she was possibly friends with Molly McCloskey and may have worked with her at the time that but yeah, I just think it's interesting if that was just somebody that nobody really knew or, um, or had any kind of ties to the crew or anything whatsoever that they would actually give her a line, like, one of the first lines in the film is her, "I'm still dreaming." I don't know. I think it's weird. No commentary or anything, nobody's ever been able to just point out who the hell it is. Yeah, the '70s shag carpet, stylish and great for sound booths. Yeah, that's the thing. People say, "Oh, well, why the hell are there shag carpet in the studio?" But yeah, it dampens the sound that you would need in like a sound booth like that. Zilla Clinton, production manager. That's somebody I'd love to meet. Zilla. You know, she was included on the Dead Walk documentary that was on that Ultimate Edition box set back in the day. I'd love to, talk to her for a little bit and get her recollections of things because, like, she was on set for everything every day, and I'd love to hear some of her stories. Now, this studio is still a TV studio. Last I checked, I think it was channel 53 back in the day. A friend of mine, Paul Farver, who came on a stream with me a month or so ago, actually visited. I guess he called up ahead of time and asked if he could come tour the studio. And they're like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" There's Flyboy, the great David Emge, which I had the great privilege of meeting his family and seeing that jacket. He still has that bomber jacket, or still had that bomber jacket. Apparently, it was like a prized possession of his. But now I love this scene, the way that George sets this scene up with this particular character here, old Rod Tucker, the young, you know, the young rookie cop, scared shitless, not sure what he's getting into. But see, confidence of Roger, he's sitting there with the young kid. But the way George builds this scene up, builds this character up, you really think like in most films, if a character's introduced first and last name and he's, the young rookie cop and he's already tagging along with, the confident guy, oh, this is gonna be a character we're gonna be with through the whole film. Like we know his first and last name, but no, the way George, as soon as these guys come out and pop a shot into his head, and he's just, here we go, Joe Shelby, bam, right in the head. kills a character right away that we'd just gotten to know, first and last name. Like, typically characters who die within a minute of meeting them, we don't know their first and last name. It's almost like George was kind of playing sleight of hand, like, "Oh, let me introduce you to this character so you kinda get an idea who he is, and then immediately kill his ass." Just throw you off so you don't really know what to expect next. I think that's brilliant, brilliant shit. Whether he intended to do that or not, I'm not sure, but I think it's super effective. Oh, down goes Joe Shelby, and Joe's a great guy. If you get a chance to meet him at a Living Dead weekend or something like that, super, super cool guy. And of course, this is John Amplis here, and of course, there's always the debate, the back and forth between him and Joe Shelby of who's Martinez. Joe Shelby says he was Martinez. John Amplis says he was Martinez. We may never know. Now, this tenement here was actually, I think, abandoned at the time. It was empty. Uh, it's been torn down since, but I think at the time that they were shooting this, it was empty at the time, and they just kind of filled it with uh, furniture and shit like that, kind of make it look like people were living there. But they apparently, from what I've heard, it was freezing cold when they were shooting in that empty tenement building. Boom, and there's the blast of Galen Ross's head. Pajara, the lady who passes her the cup, went to school. Tom Savini. Savini doesn't remember who the girl who looks like Fred Savage is. The girl who looks like Fred Savage. That's the perfect way to put that. The Fred Savage girl. Loving the extra picture and frame with the open mat. Yeah, it's pretty. It's awesome. If it's like I said, it's extra nerdy shit for people who absolutely love this film and have seen it hundreds of times, like like we have. It's really cool to see more of the frame. You see more of just a little shit like people that, you know, most people wouldn't understand, but that's why we're here tonight, guys. That's why we're on the channel watching this and talking about it. Most people wouldn't understand, but we do. And this is our time to shine, by God. By God. Since Zilla is on the back of the bike in one of the mall shots, yeah, yeah, you can see her for like a split second. She's got the long boots. I actually, in a lot of the behind the scenes photos, I think it was the Catherine Colbert collection. Catherine Colbert. You can see her in the crew, and she's got the big like knee high boots on the whole time when they were shooting that stuff, at least. Yeah, absolutely. Rest in peace, David and George. John says Joe Shelby, who actually is Martinez. Okay, so John's chiming in that Joe Shelby is actually the real Martinez. Isn't he Rico Martinez? Could be. Yeah, because that was always a thing too. Is like, who is Rico? Who is Martinez? Was Rico Martinez the full name? We may never know. I think even George was asked about that, and George was like, I don't know, and I don't care. So we couldn't get an answer from George. John says no, because at that time only two people are left. Martinez. Shelby tells Rico Amplis to look out. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. John's got it figured out. Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at because I know Paul I can't say his name. Paul Macaluso was one of the guys that got shot. I think the other guy that was on the roof in that group was a friend of his, if I remember correctly. But I have to go through the order in that. But yeah, that sounds right. That makes sense. Leave it to John to clarify everything. Stukas Dive, what's up, man? Good to see you in here again. Watching along, Dawn of the Dead. Timestamp right now if you want to watch along. Like I said, the link to the video is in the description. If you want to watch along at home, we are at 10 minutes, right at 11 minutes right now. Roger and Peter are meeting up for the first time down in the basement. I always love the tension in this scene between the two. That's what I love about these characters. They grow, they become bonded over time. Like at first, they're very, sketched out about each other. Can we trust them? Because at this point, I mean, at this point in the world, who can you trust? And it's like these two guys are finally finding someone else that they can finally trust. So much so that Roger invites him to come along in the helicopter. Okay, that makes sense, John. Well, it was Larry that put that out, so credit to him. Yeah, Larry's probably had that figured out. Which Larry is actually scheduled. He's going to be on the channel coming up. I think we're planning on June the 1st to talk about Living Dead Weekend and everything going on with that and getting everybody hyped up. You're going to be there, John, correct? Hopefully so. Hoping to see you there, man. I know Stent's going to be there. We've been talking about it this week. He's pumped. I'm excited for him. His first trip to the mall for many, many years. Huge Don fan. Different kind of cop buddy cop film. Yeah, it does kind of start off like a buddy cop film a little bit, doesn't it? But the guy here playing the priest, um, I don't remember what the story is with him. I think he was a local actor. He's great though. I mean, just the reveal here in a second that he's got one leg missing and the crutch and what he's saying here too. Kind of the way he delivers it is kind of hard to understand the first time you see it. I think for some people, but what he's saying is 100% true, and I think it really hits home the point of George's zombie films that I think a lot of movies kind of miss out on because they're more focused on you know, the the action aspect or the gore aspect, and so this is an unwinnable war. You can't beat death. You can't win against it. When the enemy is death, we lose. Like there's no so stop the killing. You're just making it worse. One thing I've always been fascinated about when it comes to these zombies, because I mean, you got to think about it. Outside of Night of the Living Dead, maybe a handful of people at this point had seen, Living Dead in Manchester Morgue. But you look at all these extras, and they probably had no clue like what they were doing really. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it because now it's like you see a zombie movie and everybody's seen 1,000 zombie movies. So you get the extras that are playing the zombies and they're trying to be a zombie. They're trying to go, "Ah," they're doing they want to be extra made up and they're all doing a take on pop culture at this point. But back then, I mean, it's just like the thing about these zombies is they're just like people. It's almost like George just like, okay, just move slowly, look off with a daze in your eyes, and you just want to like such a great scene. They had look half asleep. They're not trying to be scary. That's the thing. They're just dead people that have come back to life and their only instinct is to kill and eat people. They're not trying to be which, modern zombie movies, the zombies are trying to be scary. They're trying to But back then, I mean, all these extras, I mean, and it's fascinating that they kinda got it. And George was always on record as saying, like, I never really gave too much direction. He was just like, "Here's the basic direction, make it your own," type of thing, which is why you got, Nurse Zombie, Sharon Hill with her walk, and of course you got Clayton Hill, Sweater Zombie with his they're all distinctive. They're all characters, they're all their own thing. Whereas now it's like you see a zombie movie and every zombie in the movie is walking, acting, and doing the exact same thing. They'll try to like do a walk, but you know, nothing compares to Flyboy's zombie walk that we'll see later on. Anyway, that's just a little rant, little side rant here. Um, John says I'll be there, but I'll probably be working. What are you working on? Anything I can help with, man? Let me know. I'll be more than happy to. I'm planning on being there, trying to be there early Thursday morning and staying through Sunday. So anything I can help with, I'm more than happy to. Uh, Pajari, in a film with a million walking corpses, this priest is easily the creepiest figure in the film. I kind of agree with that. I think I kind of agree with that. Very important character and superb, if brief performance. Totally agree. Alan Neary says, agree. I like the initial tension. It would have rung very false if they were immediately buddy buddy after all that craziness that went down between the cops. Absolutely. Hearst Hill, man. Good night. Have a good night at work, brother. Be good. I'll see you around next time. Glad you stopped in. Let's see. Daff says there's nothing. Let me get it to pop up here. Nothing like zombie material from when the idea was fresh and new. Yeah, you can't beat it for me. Like I said, once it became pop culture and kind of everybody knew what a zombie was and how zombies walked and all that, it just kind of, and there's been, good zombie movies and stuff over the past 20, 30 years, but yeah, you just can't beat the original. Blake Allen, what's up, man? Good to see you in here. I got some pictures from April 2001 Expo meetup. I would like to share one day with you. I'd love to see him, man. That's awesome. 2001. Uh, where was that? Okay. Romero, Galen, and Savini wasn't there. Imgi, Forey, Reiniger, Talon, and Crut were there, however. Tallow. Okay. I was like, who's Talon? But Nick Tallow, Bomba, of course, who we just lost. God, has it been how long? 2 years now? Holy shit. Or was it last year? I think it was last year. Um, yeah, I'd love to see those, man. I think I have my email is in my channel description. If you want to shoot me an email, brother, I'd love to see those. Let's see. Alan Neary says, I saw Dawn first run US on a huge drive-in theater screen and was blown away at the sheer scale of the production, number of extras and locations. Yeah, I mean, just to think of what this film was made for, too, like 600,000. I think the number that Rubenstein gives, which it's been reported as like a million to 1.5 million. The number of Rubenstein's the final number was about 600,000 bucks. Impossible to do that these days. Even in, money back then. I mean, you'd be taking inflation and shit. Um, Incredible what they were able to do. Born to be rad. What's up, man? Garrett in the house. Dude, Bruiser. Yeah, dude. I talked about that at the beginning of the stream. Went through that new Bruiser release from Indicator over in the UK. Really excited about those special features. It's gonna be awesome to see Bruiser in 4K, but those special features really, really piqued my interest. Um, so yeah, really looking forward to seeing that. Good to see you in here, man. Mm, so yeah, timestamp on this for anybody joining in. Right about 19 minutes and right around 40 seconds. So right now we're in the middle of the rednecks and the National Guard having a party, enjoying the whole thing. But yeah, you can really see, like, especially on these wide shots here, you can really see way more of the frame than you're probably used to seeing. And that always gets a chuckle anytime I see it in the theater or something. The guy's hunting the zombies. And here we are at the Monroeville Airport, the RIP this airport. Probably my favorite, and it's unfortunate for somebody like Synth, who's going to be coming to Pittsburgh for the first time this year. He missed the airport, and that's kind of the one of the things that got me off my ass and got me to Pittsburgh for the first time was the rumors that the airport was going to be torn down and all that. Probably my favorite location though. I mean, because there was so much about it that looked almost exactly the same as it did back then. Like, yeah, there was some stuff missing and this and that, but for the most part, holy shit! Like it was like you were back on the set of Dawn of the Dead. But unfortunately, it's all been torn down, and they're building, a neighborhood or something back there now. But yeah, like all the stuff inside of the airport building here looked very, very much the same. No coffee machine though, unfortunately. One of my favorite things to do too, I know it's really good if you have like the 4K version or something that you can, pause and really look at, is all the notes and stuff that are posted up on the coffee machine and around the wall here in the office area, of the airport. Because it's obviously people just leaving notes for loved ones and stuff like, "Hey, meet me here, meet me there." It's pretty cool that they took the time to do that. Since speaking of island, funny how the survivors in Dawn of the Dead remake shot in Wisconsin and went to a non-existent island with warm weather trees. Yeah, don't get me started. We're watching the Dawn of the Dead tonight. Don't get me started on the Dawn remake because the more and more I watch that movie, the more I think about it, the less I like it. The more I'm just like, man, the movie makes no fucking sense. But yeah, like, well, you're in a mall, you have everything you need, you're safe and secure. But no, guys, let's get out of here. Let's go to an island where there's who knows what. That seems like a better idea. It's like, come on. TCCK Films was the shot of the zombies getting shot at the top of the hill used at the end of Shaun of the Dead. And it's been a while since I've seen Shaun of the Dead. I love Shaun of the Dead. That's probably my favorite zombie film of the last 20 years, I would say. When that came out, I watched that fucking movie over and over and over again. I know the music cue here, this music, um, is used at the opening of Shaun of the Dead, but I'm not sure. It may be. I'd have to go back and rewatch. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen Shaun of the Dead. I need to go back and rewatch it. I love that movie though. I love it. Um, since there's no more signs of the airport, no, it's completely gone, man. They've leveled everything there. It is heartbreaking, and they fucking did that like a week before Living Dead weekend. Was it last year? I believe. Yeah, it would have been last year, like a week before Living Dead weekend. Like I was kind of like, okay, I get one more shot to go out to the airport, and you really see. I think it was Savini, because those are Savini's his niece and nephew, I believe. And I think the hand there you could see on the right side of the screen was Savini's hand, I believe, or it may have been George's. I'm not sure, but you could definitely see it in this cut. You can see it a little bit in the theatrical cuts and stuff, but you can really see it here. But no, it's all gone, man. They fucking tore that down, almost like they were trying to be a dick about it. Like a week before the festival, they were just like, "Ah, we're tearing down the airport. Fuck them." I really wish we would have been able to like, I don't know, scrape some money, get a bunch of us fans together, scrape some money together, and buy that sucker out. Because I had a dream once that like a group of us ended up buying the airport, and we held like a fucking music festival out in the field. I don't know. Probably some fever dream that I had one night while I went to bed, stoned out of my mind or something like that, I would guess. Since says Shaun of the Dead is great for those not knowing Dawn of the Dead, but it's so much better when you get the references. Yeah, and for me at the time, I mean, 2004. I mean, I was huge into Romero and all this. So yeah, watching that, it was just like, oh man, because at the time, like nobody talked about, especially my age, because in 2004 I was 16, 15, 16. So I was like the only kid in school, the only kid on my block, the only kid that I knew that knew anything about these movies and loved them. Um, so it was cool seeing a movie like in the mainstream that everybody was watching and everybody was talking about it and loving and being like, "Oh, but you don't understand. You don't get this reference." 4 Electric. Do you know what that is? And they're like, "I don't know." And I'm like, "Oh, it's Ken Foree from Don." Then they're like, "Who cares?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess it's just me." Um, but yeah. John says, "I love that in this open mat you can see the phone booth on the left hand side when Ken walks out, and it was still there." Yeah, that's a thing too. That phone booth was still there last time I was at the airport. That phone booth was still standing, and you can really see it in this cut here. Yeah, so much about like I said, so much about um the the gas tanks were gone when I got by the time I had made it out there, but they still had the overhead light, which over time was like standing the first year that I was there, and then I came back next year and it was down on the ground. I mean, it was heavy, it was huge. And then somebody, I guess, picked it up and took it. I don't know who has it. Um, that'd be like a fun like reality series to do on here is to like track down who owns what. Because I know some people who have like lighting fixtures and stuff from the mall that they had taken down when they would be doing remodeling and stuff like that. That'd be a fun, like, little project, but Mick Horror, what's up, man? Good to have you in here. I could watch Dawn and Day every day and never get tired of them. Well, I do. I do watch them almost every day, it seems like. Right there in that shot, I don't know why this just caught my eye, but you could totally see the grass down at the bottom that you've never seen before. See, here we are, folks. We're getting excited about grass. Good to have you in here, man. Alneri says, I'm not automatically anti-remake. Example, I love Sorcerer remake of Wages of Fear. But seriously, fuck that Dawn of the Dead remake. Yeah, I mean it's fine. If you're looking for a mindless action zombie movie, I mean it's perfect for that. But if you stop 1 second and think about the plot of that movie, and it's like, why do they go to the mall? I don't know. Why do they leave the mall? I don't know. And then they end it with that fucking Disturbed song, and you're just like, "Oh, man, this was eh." But people love it. I don't know, I'm not, not judging. It's fine, but it's not the original. We'll just say that. Stuka says you can still see the airport on Google Earth. That's true. That's one of the only ways down. There's a lot of footage out there that people take. I took some video footage last time I was out there. Paul Farver posted some footage on Facebook not too long ago, I believe. Closest point is right next to the pumps. Better take a screenshot while we can. That's true. Yeah, before long, it's just going to be some neighborhood with some very bland, flavorless houses and whatever the hell's going on out there. I'll still try to see the airport land area since I will have a car. I think a lot of it's taped off. I don't know if you can drive back there because the main road that takes you to it, there's like a side road that was like a gravel road that led you to the airport. And I think they got all that blocked off now. They've probably started, building housing and stuff out there at this point. But that road that you take to get to the airport, literally in the street over in the neighborhood next to the airport, if you go down there, you'll see the Creep Show house, the Tom Atkins house from the beginning of Creep Show with the pumpkin in the window and stuff. And those people are cool as shit. I highly recommend checking that out because those people they have the pumpkin in the window. They got the trash can out front with the copy of Creep Show in it. They're obviously huge fans of the movie, and that's probably why they bought the house. But yeah, every year for Living Dead weekend, they dress it up like in Creep Show, and then they have a little book you can sign, and it's pretty cool. Highly recommend that. And then of course down the road, right next to that is, if you remember in the scene with the National Guard and the rednecks and stuff, you can see this red like barn looking house in the distance. That house is like right on that road too. You can't miss it. It's crazy. Literally, you go to Monroeville, Pittsburgh, Evans City, wherever, and you're literally on the set of a George Romero film everywhere you turn. It's awesome. Dev said, Peter about to show Steven what's up. He does that a lot here in the first hour of the movie or so. Peter just doesn't have the patience or the time for Flyboy's bullshit here to start. But Flyboy comes around by the end. They grow closer. That's the thing about the characters, man. They grow. There's they have different, there's depth to them, believe it or not. Def says, I like the Dawn of the Dead remake, but it's dumb shit. Romero was a lot more thoughtful. Yeah, I just think movies back in the day in general were more thoughtful. I think they had to be because they couldn't rely on, grand special effects and CGI and stuff like we can now. So back then it was, there was more of a focus on stuff. I sound like an old man now. Like when my grandparents used to tell me about movies from the 40s and they're like, oh, they just don't make them like they used to. I understand now. I get what Mama was talking about back in the day. They don't make them like they used to. John says, all those shots outside the mall there, the 30, etc., were all done the first day. You'll see soon. I'm looking forward to that, John. I've been talking to Larry about that. I'm super stoked about that. Let's see. Super Spurg, what's up? You watching it now? Yes, sir. We are in the timestamp right now. We're at about 31 minutes 15 seconds in. Like I said, the link to the version that we're watching is down in the description. Hop on and chatting about it. We've been kind of all over the map so far, talking about whatever pops up, but yeah, they're heading down the stairwell now, going down to the mall. Peter and Roger. I love that Rogers, like Peter's, like trying to be as delicate about this as possible because he just gave Fran a fucking rifle and she's never shot a gun and she's just very, iffy about the whole thing. And Peter's trying to be caring and like, oh, be careful, yeah. And Roger's just like, fuck it, let's get out of here. I'm done with this. Let's go to work. Could care less about it. Let's see. Since says fast zombies make no sense ever. Movement takes energy, and they are not getting or not eating and rotting constantly, so they get less and less mobile, if ever mobile. Yeah, I mean that's the thing that George always pointed out. It's like, a zombie. If you're a dead person, your ankles would break. And it's like, yeah, that's true. But I guess like I said, more modern movies, and technology and stuff. When it's all about the action and the CGI and all that you can do with that. People are more interested in the spectacle of something more so than the story or common sense or anything. Yeah, the Red Barn House must on your list. I highly agree with that. Super Spurg, not a fan of the fast zombies either. I like the fast or slow zombie debate. I could care less. I like, like Return of the Living Dead. I love Return of the Living Dead. Doesn't bother me. Train to Busan, I thought was a good zombie film that had fast zombies. I just looked past it. 28 Days Later, I guess you could say, but I don't really consider that, them zombies. They're not the living dead, technically. Although the film, I still call the film a zombie film because of the way that it's portrayed and shot and the way that, it's a zombie film. It's a 20 Days Later's Danny Boyle's tribute to George, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, it's fine. But yeah, slower zombies. I mean, they make the most sense logically. If you're using your brain and you're trying to watch a movie and use your brain, like, yeah, it's kind of hard to get over, but whatever. Blake says I just sent an email with a few photos. I'll have more that I'll get later. Awesome, man. I look forward to checking those out when I get off here. David Early was there and smoked with them. That's awesome. David passed away way too young. Never got a chance to meet David. But I've never heard anything bad about him. Always heard good things about him. Of course, David, had roles in, um, Monkey Shines. I worked with George again in Monkey Shines and Silence of the Lambs. He was in Silence of the Lambs as well. But yeah. Let's see. Fast Undead in fantasy movies is fine since it's magic. Yeah. It's in the script. That's what they say. Oh, that's interesting. Early smoked more 100s. Interesting choice. All right. Boys need lighter fluid. Brown Derby back there. I think they were, if I remember correctly, the Brown Derby, it's like a restaurant slash bar. And I think they would stay open. Of course, they would shoot Dawn of the Dead late at night. They would shoot overnight because the mall would be open during the day. But if I remember correctly, that bar in the Brown Derby was open until like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So you'd have like drunk people staggering out while walking past zombies, and they're shooting other stuff down at the other end of the mall and shit like that. But I think that restaurant ended up closing not too long after this came out. So yeah, in this scene you can definitely see some crew members and stuff here on the edges here if you look close enough. I think you can see Tom. I think you can see Savini at one point. Right over here, you can see in the reflection of the glass. You can see Savini just kind of sitting back. You can see Fran, Galen Ross there in the back. If you pause it for a second, you see she's just kind of looks like she's sitting next to the wheelbarrow that they put Roger in. That's always a big crowd pleaser too. Is the Jay Stover rifle zombie? Anytime I've seen it in the theater, that always gets a laugh. Yeah. Super Spurg says, well, Return of the Living Dead has good running fast zombies. Yeah, Return of the Living Dead, you know, it works in that one to me. I don't know why it works, but that's such a good movie. It's a classic. Um, Of course, I think from the late '60s to early '90s, creativity was at an all-time high because of all the drugs. Yeah, that's a good point. Now most movies feel like, big budget corporate people only worried about big returns, and that's what it is, especially in Hollywood. Um, which I mean, I would say honestly in horror right now, I think there's a lot of good stuff out there, and I think it's what you said. I think a lot of people are experimenting with maybe different drugs and stuff now because you watch something like Brandon Cronenberg's films or Ari Aster or something like that. It's like it's hard. You got to be high to watch those fucking movies for the most part. Um, but yeah, for the most part, I mean, movies now, I mean, especially in the mainstream Hollywood stuff, is just it's a product now. I mean, it's just a way to make a buck, which it always has been. But it was just a different system back then. But AI is on its way, folks. So yay! One of my dreams in life was to do that on that escalator, and I know many people who have, but I just bullshitted and waited too long to visit the mall to get a chance to. Just to slide down that escalator in pennies. Let's see. Al Neary says, "I love Return, which is a clever film with fast zombies. The Dawn remake is a stupid film with fast zombies. That's the difference." Yeah, I agree. I agree with that one. Blake says David Early was a super awesome person. He and my dad stood outside and smoked and talked. That was when he told me he was in Silence of the Lambs as a SWAT member. Yeah, George is in Silence of the Lambs too. Um, George has a little cameo, which I always thought was weird. And like I had, because I'd seen Silence of the Lambs when I was a kid, probably. So I'd probably seen that first. And I had no idea that that was George. And then you go back and watch it later on. You're like, holy shit, is that George? You're like, yeah, it is. Because I didn't know Silence of the Lambs was shot in Pittsburgh at the time. But since says, yeah, the stories of zombies getting drunk uh, at the Brown Derby and some actually crashed a golf cart. And yeah, that's a story too. Ended up crashing a golf cart into a pillar at the mall and caused a little bit of damage. It's amazing all the stuff that they did in this movie. We talk about like from a budgetary standpoint, but all the stuff that they were able to do, motorcycles driving through the mall, shit blowing up outside. I mean, constant squibs and blood spurting everywhere. I mean, the fact that they didn't do more damage than they did to the mall, because yeah, there were a few instances. The outside, I think they were setting off they were detonating an explosion outside one night and ended up shattering some of the glass um, at the loading dock entrance, which is still there. I mean, it looks almost identical to how it did in the film. The loading dock entrance where the zombie biker and zombie bikers, wrong movie. When the bikers are coming into the mall, that loading dock entrance, I mean, it's still there. It looks almost identical to how it did back in 78, 77, 78. Um, but yeah, that very little damage for the most part. I mean, they were driving a car around that fucking mall at one point. It's crazy to think that what they got away with. And you couldn't do that now. You just could not do that for insurance reasons, SAG reasons. There's just no way to do that now. Straight across from Dawn of the Dead table was a bloody crate from the original Creep Show. I I know the guy who owns that now. Uh, I think I know the guy that has that. Elvira was there in her getup, and that was a plus. Yeah, I've seen Elvira before. Never seen World War Z. I never had an interest in seeing it. I liked the book. Book was good, but never watched the movie. I was just like, this doesn't look like my type of thing. So I just never never watched it. Uh, I remember recognizing David as a SWAT and Lambs. Yeah, he's got some pretty good screen time in that movie too. Synth agrees. Book was good. Movie sucked. World War Z. Uh, Blake says the cleanup crew on Dawn had their hands full. Yeah, that's one thing to think about too. And that's one thing. I mean, you got to appreciate about movies back then, especially when it comes to squibs and blood shots everywhere, is that they had to clean all that shit up. If you had to do a second take, that was a whole thing, and that's why you see almost everything now. I just saw it recently. I just watched Late Night with the Devil. Um, fine horror movie. but it's supposed to be taking place in the 70s. It's kind of shot to look like it's in the 70s. But there's a scene where you just see like this, blatant CGI black sludge stuff, and it just took me out of the movie for a solid 30 minutes before I could just kind of get back into it. But they do that now because it's so cost effective. It saves you time and money and all that, and that's all movie productions are for the most part, unless you're shooting low budget guerrilla filmmaking, indie filmmaking type of stuff. Um, Most of what a director does on a movie set is, keep things rolling, making sure that they're on time, making sure that they're under budget. Um, and the easiest way to do that is just to make CGI. That's one of my like. I love The Devil's Rejects. That's one thing that I can't stand to this day when I watch that movie is the CGI blood. At times, it's just like, oh, why'd you do that? But I understand. I mean, I understand. There's George had to do it on his last three films. He used CGI blood. It's just more cost effective. It's easy. There's no cleanup. You ain't got to worry about it. It's just like, yeah, we'll just add it in later. So yeah, I get why they do it. I'm not a fan of it at all. Um, of course, says, what are some of your other most watched horror films? Oh man, Texas Chainsaw Massacre for one. That's probably my outside of Romero stuff, probably my favorite horror film. I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Maniac. I love William Lustig's Maniac. I've seen that countless times. Um, Wes Craven stuff from the 70s. Last House on the Left. Hills Have Eyes. Love both of those. Um, Cronenberg. I love Videodrome, Shivers, two of my all-time favorites. Um, God, that's there's so many. I'm probably some more modern stuff. Really love Ari Aster's stuff. Uh, Hereditary, Midsommar. I love Beau is Afraid too. A lot of people, it's a very polarizing movie, but I love what he does. Everything. It's just so like there's only one person who could come up with that shit. Um, American Movie. If you guys are familiar with that documentary on Mark Borchardt, the indie filmmaker in Wisconsin, that's probably top five favorite movies of all time. I could watch that anytime. Infinitely quotable movie too. I quote it all the fucking time, and I don't even try to. Um, what are some other ones? Halloween, of course. I mean, John Carpenter. I mean, almost anything John Carpenter. I'm a huge fan of Halloween, The Thing. Um, I love In the Mouth of Madness. That to me, that's one of the scariest movies I saw when I was a kid. Like I was used to watching horror movies, but for some reason, In the Mouth of Madness scared the absolute shit out of me. Oh, you see Boom Mike. That's one thing you'll spot a lot in this too. You'll see a lot of boom mics at some point here, and I think it's when Roger's in the wheelbarrow and they get back to JC Penney's and they got Fran with them and they're going to get it's when they decide to use the car. You can actually see the boom operator, Robert Williams, standing there in clear sight with the boom mic. Um, So keep an eye out for that when we get to that point in the movie. But yeah, I'm a huge horror fan. Always have been since I was a kid. Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, that was the one that got me started on horror. Period. I was probably like 4 years old and I discovered that movie, and I just thought it was the coolest fucking thing I ever saw. But yeah, 28 Days Later, that's another one that I love. But yeah, I could go on forever, but it's a good question. That's the thing about I love Romero and I love talking about Romero, but I also like anytime I can get on Grande's channel, like Grande's Graveyard, or I can hop on Dead Pit and just talk about other stuff. I enjoy doing that too. But Romero's the stuff that I just know, and I'm always in my mind and ready to talk about. So TCCK films, I saw Late Night with the Devil as well. Very good film, but yeah, I agree that there were some very minor, slight flaws. Very good movie. I agree. I think that's pretty much my overall feel of it. I enjoyed it. I never got bored with it. I never wanted to turn it off. It kept my attention. But yeah, there are a few nitpicky things like the CGI and stuff was a little like But yeah, that's a big thing. Like when a movie is set in the 70s and is shot to look like it's from the 70s. When I see CGI, it's like my brain short circuits for a second, and I'm just like, why'd you do that? Uh, Blake says World War Z book was awesome. Done correctly, that would have been the Ben-Hur of good zombie movies. I agree. I was excited when I heard they were turning it into a movie, and then when I saw the finished product, I was like, "Yeah, fuck that." Yeah, the scene with the screwdriver zombie with John Harrison, of course, who, ended up doing the score for Creepshow and Dawn of the Dead, continuity purposes. But it worked. I mean, it's very memorable. Stuga says, "I like a lot of '80s sci-fi movies." Yeah, I grew up on a lot of sci-fi, horror, like, I don't know. Yeah, I was just born into it, I guess. Al Neary says, "Maniac is a great favorite of mine also, and probably my favorite Tom Savini work outside of Dawn of the Dead, or Day of the Dead." Day of the Dead's probably, to me, like, Tom Savini's, like, pinnacle in terms of practical effects and what he's able to do. But a lot of that, I mean, a lot of that credit goes to, Nicotero and all the guys that, 'cause that was a dream team working on that movie. When you look at it, because it was Nicotero's first gig. But when you look back on it in hindsight, all the guys that worked on that, that effects crew, I mean, like I said, it was an all-star an all-star crew. Said the American movie was a great find, so funny and wild, love the commentary. Yeah, I just love Mark Borchardt. I think he's misunderstood. I think he, 'cause he hosts a radio show in Wisconsin and Milwaukee where he talks about film and stuff, and I've discovered a lot of my favorite, stuff that I would have never watched otherwise, just listening to him talk about it. His favorite movie is Dawn of the Dead. He's really into some weird, like, Bergman and, John Cassavetes and stuff like that. Like, I love those guys too, but it's he always comes back to, like, Dawn of the Dead. That's my favorite movie, and that's the movie that made me wanna make movies, and I'm like, I guess that's why I identified with him so much, is that Dawn of the Dead was the movie that made me wanna make movies when I was a kid too. Um, but yeah, I think he's just misunderstood. People think he's kind of a goof, or, kinda, which he's actually a very smart guy. Blake Allen says World War Z novel actually kind of combined Fulci zombie after Overkids didn't go around water because zombies still filled the water and were like crocodiles. Yeah, that's another one. That's talking about movies outside of Romero. I'm a huge Argento fan. I love a lot of Fulci stuff. I mean, Suspiria, Tenebrae. Tenebrae is probably my favorite Argento film. One of my favorite horror films in general. I just think Tenebrae is a fucking masterpiece. Suspiria is close behind. Um, Fulci, I mean, Zombie, City of the Living Dead, Beyond. I have to kind of be in the mood for it, but when it comes to like cheesy, bad Italian zombie movies, like like if I'm in the mood for it, it really hits home. Like Hell of the Living Dead, or uh, shit, even stuff like Cannibal Holocaust. Like, I kind of dig. I mean, it's not something that I watch all the time. Like, oh, I love watching, but like it's so effective and so well done. Like, it's, yeah, I like a lot of Italian stuff too. Of course, his Maniac is awesome. The remake was meh. It had some cool shots and music, but I love seeing grimy New York City back in the day. I was actually Maniac is probably, I've said it before, probably my favorite slasher movie from the '80s, of all of them. I just think it's a brilliant movie. I think the end is the only thing that holds it back from being like just one of the best horror movies ever, which it still is. But I mean, to me, the ending felt a little rushed. Um, Mainly the relationship between Carolyn Monroe and Joe Spinell's characters. But yeah, I love Maniac, and I thought the remake was one of my favorite remakes because I was expecting to hate it when I saw it. But timestamp, Stuka, sorry, but we are at currently 50 minutes and 36 seconds. They are just now heading back up to the hideout in the mall, and Flyboy is trying to talk Fran into why it is a good idea for them to stick around and go shopping here in just a little bit. Mm, I see that solid state JC Penney's TV, and yeah, I got something to show you guys soon. We'll just leave it at that. It's gonna be a surprise, little cliffhanger. But yeah, I just love the relationship between Flyboy and Fran and Dawn of the Dead. I talked about it last week on the stream. We were really just kind of digging into the characters. If you haven't checked out that from last week, the For the Apocalypse, um, which of course is taken from a Fulci film, but yeah, I just love their relationship because Flyboy is like his whole character to me is he's desperate for approval. He's desperate to fit in, especially when it comes to Fran and their like. Because I mean, yeah, they're together and she's pregnant with his baby, um, but it just never seems like Fran is fully in with him, whereas he's like desperately trying to, show her that he's, he can be the man too, but she's just nah. Another thing you don't see a lot in movies anymore is just that level of depth between a two characters relationship, a romantic relationship like that. Instead, you'll get like in the remake when it's Mackay Pfeiffer and the Russian girl or whatever, and they're just there's nothing there. It's just we're a couple and she's pregnant and now she's a zombie and the baby's a zombie and we're all zombies and we're all having whatever. Anyway, uh, Al says, I consider the Maniac remake to be the Los Angeles Maniac and the original to be the New York Maniac. That's a good way to put it. The Maniac remake, excuse me, works for me because it still feels European in a way. Like the original Maniac, even though it was, grimy early 80s, late 70s New York City, um, the new, like the remake of Maniac still has like a weird, um, like Euro, I don't know, like a Northern European feel. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It still has that feel, though. I don't know why. Blake Allen says John Harrison is great. He directed an episode of I'll Bite. Okay, I'll Bite episode of Creepshow TV. I was in. Oh yeah, that's right, man. I remember you hopping on here and talking about that. Um, that's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to. I still haven't checked out that episode. The Creepshow TV series is one that I need to really dig into. I've seen quite a few episodes of it, but I've never actually gone through and watched all of them. TV is just that's a tough sell for me. Even like the Tales from the Dark Side TV series from back in the day, I was never that was never a big one for me. But I just recently got around to watch 'cause I have the whole set on DVD, and I enjoy it. It's just I don't know, man. TV series, episodic TV just doesn't appeal to me most of the time. I'll say, but yeah, that's awesome, man. Savini was good, but Nicotero outshined him in my opinion. Okay, hot take coming in from Mick Horror here. Which I mean, I mean, it's hard to argue against. Nicotero became a multi-millionaire, 10 times over. But I mean, he learned everything that he knew from Savini and just kind of, took it, one step further. But yeah, hot take from Big Horror here. I loved when he kept saying Coven, and the actor he hired kept correcting him with Coven, like oven. Yeah, Coven sounds like oven, man, and we just can't have that. It's like, well, maybe we could put like a little an umlaut over the top. And he's like, well, oh, what? The little. Oh, you mean the two dots over? I don't know. I don't think that works, man. Classic movie. Stuka says, Hell of the Living Dead is great. That chick running around the jungle with the paint on. Yeah, I mean that's a wild fucking movie. That's one of those movies that's just so bad that it's good. I mean, it's a complete rip off of Dawn of the Dead down to the music. I mean, they just took the Goblin soundtrack and was just like, yeah, we're gonna use this. But I enjoy it. I'm a fan. I can't get into Fulci. I kept trying, but they are no, but they are too slow and make no sense. House by the Cemetery is the only one I could actually get into. Yeah, I mean that's totally understandable. Fulci is an acquired taste in a lot of ways. So here we're at first point where Fran starts to step up and claim her role in the group here. Roger wants to hear none of it. which would explain why he, has an ex-wife, not a current wife. Never got the feeling that Roger was much of a ladies' man. Now, see, last week I posted the question of who was most important to the group's survival. Peter won overwhelmingly, just because I mean it's Peter. He's calm, cool, collected, man with the plan, wise, level-headed. Can't go wrong with Peter. But if Fran doesn't come along and say, "Hey, I need to learn how to fly the helicopter because old dum dum over here is going to end up getting himself killed trying to be, the hero, and we're all going to be fucked if I don't know how to fly a helicopter." So she was the only one smart enough to kind of see that coming. So they would have all been fucked, yeah, by the end without Fran. But there is no helicopter without Flyboy, so there's that too. So the trucks here, this is actually, I think this is a bus depot now. I visited a couple of years ago, um, but it's in Irwin, Pennsylvania, I believe, which is right around the same areas where a lot of the filming locations for Kingpin, the '90s comedy, was shot. And I came across a location. That's probably my all time favorite comedy is Kingpin with Woody Harrelson, Bill Murray, and Randy Quaid. And I just was driving to Irwin to see the bus depot all this year, and I come across this location. I'm like, this looks very familiar. I looked it up, and sure as shit, it was the apartments from Kingpin where Woody Harrelson is living. Hey, too tall, too slow, too. Come in. And see, like stuff like this is cut out of the Argento cut, but I think it's so important when building these characters and the bond that they grow to have with each other, and it makes it so much more effective when one of them dies. It, you know, little levity, little humanity to the characters. Blake Allen says, "I regret that children shouldn't play with dead things fell through with Samini directing." Yeah, I remember hearing about that years ago. That's another one. 72, Bob Clark, one of Bob Clark's earliest ones. That was before Black Christmas. Children shouldn't play with dead things. That was I remember getting that VHS, the Anchor Bay VHS that from like the early 2000s, I believe, or maybe late 90s. I found it at a Kroger for like $5. That thing's worth a shitload of money now. I don't know whatever happened to it. I'm sure it's in a box up in my parents' attic somewhere, but yeah, that's a good one. I'm guessing I'm the oldest person in chat. I was blessed with seeing Dawn, Zombie, City of the Living Dead, Demons, and more. Demons, that's another one that I love. Demons 1 and 2. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I wish I would have been around to see those. I would have loved to have. Although I guess where I grew up, we probably wouldn't have gotten any of those back in the day. So one of these shots here coming up, one of the bigger shots, you can actually see, or I think it may be cut off in this version. I think I remember John telling me that it was cut off. I haven't looked close enough yet, but you can actually see. I think it's in the Argento open map version. You can actually see George and the crew standing there, um, off to the I think the left hand side of the screen, shooting down in the parking lot. One thing I like about this version too is all the little the pops and all the imperfections of the print. It just feels like you're watching, an actual print of the movie. But since I used to know someone with that actual radio before I knew about Dawn of the Dead, interesting. I know some people with a lot of stuff from this movie that had picked up over the years. Super Berg says, "I lost count how many times I've seen Dawn of the Dead." Yeah, I mean, it's if I really think about it, no, there's no way to come up with it. But yeah, it's a lot. This is one of those movies back in the day when I was a teenager and, I'd be, home from school during the summer and I'd make some ramen noodles and this was always on the TV. Since this Dawn of the Dead remake has 0 characters that you care about, Romero actually or usually writes good characters with arcs. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, yeah, all the characters in the Dawn remake were pretty one-dimensional. They all had, like, their gimmick. It was like, I'm the snobby guy who doesn't care, and I'm the sensitive guy who wishes I was a better husband, and it's like, there's just, like there's no growth or I don't know. McHorse says, "What are your top 3 Argento flicks?" I would say number 1 I say Tenebrae would probably be my number 1 favorite Argento film, but like I said, it's really a toss-up depending on my mood, but I would say Tenebrae, Suspiria, and then number 3, I would probably Hey. It's funny in this open matte version, you can see the zombie outside the truck still standing out there outside the window, you can see the top of his head. But, yeah, I'd say number 3 is probably Profondo Rosso. Although I'm a big fan of, Four Flies on Grey Velvet too, that's another one that I highly enjoy. Um, Super Spurs says Romero should have done the Resident Evil movie. Yeah, I don't we all wish we would have gotten that version instead of what we actually got. Um, yeah, there's actually a documentary coming out on that soon, that I'm really, really looking forward to about the whole saga of George and what his version of Resident Evil would have been and why it didn't happen, and it's an interesting story. I'm really looking forward to seeing that documentary. Since Hell of the Living Dead has a nice hybrid of great goblin tracks, Dawn of the Dead, and Contamination. Yeah, to me, I mean that's Vincent Dawn, best film. Of course, Vincent Dawn was like a bullshit name that Bruno Mattei came up with, but Blake Allen says original Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things by Bob Clark is a hit or miss by most folks. Yeah, I mean it's low budget. I mean it's low budget as hell, but I always enjoyed it for what it is. Low budget, little zombie film. I love the costumes in that movie too. It's like very early 70s, late 60s, like very psychedelic looking shit. But those zombies were scary in the score. That's true too. The zombies were scary in that movie. I'll agree with that. If nothing else. Alan Erie says first Argento film I ever saw was Deep Red, which amazingly ran uncut on local TV in the early '80s. That's interesting. I didn't know who Argento was yet, but it made a point to find out. Um, First Argento film I saw. What was the first Argento film I saw? It may have been Tenebrae, actually, which may be why I hold it in such high regard. It was Tenebrae or Suspiria. McHorse's Nightmare City is pretty fun. Yeah, that's another one. I remember renting that at an old video store, one of those old mom and pop video stores back in the day that had just the best selection of horror movies on VHS. When I was a kid, you'd just go and it'd be like you'd go and rent five movies for 5 days for $5, that type of thing. So I would just go in there and just pick shit out that I had no clue what it was, just see what it, just to test it out and see if it was any good. And that was one that they had. It was called City of the Walking Dead, though, was the version that they had on VHS. I remember getting that and watching it and thinking, like, man, this is kind of cool. I kind of like it, but man, that last scene when she falls from the helicopter and hits the fucking roller coaster on the way down, and it just looks like somebody literally dropped a mannequin. I was just like, holy shit, I think the thing that sells it though is the overdub screaming. Anyway, that's a good one. I love that movie. That's one I've seen a bunch of times too. Stuka says I had this movie on VHS for like 3 years before I realized there was a mini poster on the reverse cover. Oh yeah. Was it the uh was it the director's cut with the It's got, like, the multicolored stuff on because that's the VHS version. That's the first version I actually bought. The first version I actually had was, recorded off of IFC during one of those, uh, what do they call it? Indie screams during Halloween season back in the early 2000s. Romero doing The Walking Dead, I don't know if he would have or not. I think he always had, like, a weird feeling about that. I think he really enjoyed, like, the first couple episodes because he was a big Frank Darabont fan, but over time, I think it just felt like he was just being ripped off and getting, you know I think he was a little bitter about that, but I'm sure if they would've asked him, maybe he would've done it, but yeah, I think he may have been bitter of the fact that they didn't ask him. I don't know, I'd have to go back and listen to some interviews about, "Oh, Roger just got bit." Mm. Yeah, I'd have to go back and listen to some interviews about that, and see if George ever mentioned if they ever asked him or anything really. But I was never a huge Walking Dead fan. I saw the first season and I was pretty good with it. I was like, "Hey, I'm good. I don't need to see any more." I thought the first season was okay, and then as it went on, I was just like, just maybe I was a little biased because George was never a big fan, so I was like, "I'm with George." But can't argue with how big that and what that did to horror conventions too. The success of that show, I mean, for good or bad. Good for the guests at these conventions because now they can charge out the ass, but maybe bad for us, I'm not sure. Um, since as all the characters here contribute for sure compared to the damn remake, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're a team. I mean, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. Of course, as Imagine a Dawn Day of the Dead show directed by Romero, I think that would have been awesome. Yeah. I mean, there was talks over the years of Romero doing different stuff for TV, but never nothing ever came of it. Um, although there, of course, was that the talk of the Twilight of the Dead being made soon, but there was some rumors and rumblings about that, and then I haven't heard shit about that in months, so I don't know if that's happening or not. But last I heard, they were getting Brad Anderson to direct it, who was directed Session 9. I think was his big horror film that I've heard plenty of people rave about over the years. Never seen it, but and of course, this gun store was not actually in the mall. That's one thing people always point out. They're like, "Why would there be a gun store in the mall?" Because it was the '70s. That's my excuse. It was the '70s. Of course, there was a gun store in the mall. What are you crazy? But you'd never tell. And I think for most people that they just assume like, "Oh yeah, it was the '70s. There probably was a gun store and shopping malls back then." So yeah, timestamp on this right now. If anybody's just joining us, we're about an hour, 9 minutes, and 40 seconds right now. They are in Gunner's Den, the gun store. Ain't it a crime? Great line. One of the best lines in movie history, by God. By God. Since says Nicotero's recent innovations using green screen elements for body transparencies is next level for Walking Dead. No puppets needed. Yeah, I mean Nicotero. I mean K and B is the gold standard for practical effects in any almost any movie you can think of. They have their hands. They have their hands on it. Um, which is why Nicotero is so fucking cool. If you get a chance to talk to him or meet him, when you're in Pittsburgh next month, absolutely do it. Because I mean, the dude has no reason to be as cool as he is. I mean, the dude's a millionaire 10 times over, like I said, but he's just a fan like all of us. Like he's just as much of a fan of these movies as we are, and he just loves talking about it and just loves hanging out and meeting people. And I don't think he charges hardly anything for an autograph, too. I think he's like maybe $20 or something. I think he donates it and he'll sign whatever you got. Greg's such a cool guy. Super, super cool guy. And Howard Berger being there at Living Dead Weekend this year is really exciting because I never met him, I don't think I've ever seen him. I think he's done some conventions in the past, but not a lot. So it's pretty awesome that he's gonna be there. Blake Allen Demons is scary as hell, is all hell, and also has great Italian gross out moments. I 100% agree with that. Demons is one of those movies that's like nightmare fuel for me. Like when I used to have nightmares as a kid about like monsters, the monsters that I was dreaming about were like the demons in that movie. Like just people, but like with the nails and the fangs and the glowing eyes. That's the big thing. I can't tell you how many nightmares I had as a kid about fucking monsters with glowing eyes coming at me in the dark. But funny enough, when my daughter, I think she was like 2 at the time, I was watching Demons in the living room. I was by myself, and then my daughter and my fiance came home from like wherever they were shopping or whatever. And she comes in, and I'm watching Demons, and I'm like, "Oh, maybe I should turn this off. I should probably turn this off. She's not gonna deal with this very well." But at 2 years old, she comes up, gets in my lap, and she's just like, "Oh, what are you watching?" And she just sits there and watches the whole thing. And her only like she wasn't like shook by it or anything like that. It was just more like, "Ew, gross," or "Oh, it's scary," or "Oh," she had fun with it. She liked it. So I was like, "Oh man, starting her off early on the good stuff." But I was totally expecting her to be scared shitless watching that movie, but she was cool with it. And now she loves Creepshow. Anytime she comes up and hangs out in my room, um, I'll let her go over to my Blu-rays and stuff, and we're like, "Oh, we're gonna watch a movie. Pick something." I'll just let her pick whatever. We'll watch it, unless it's something like if she pulls out, Cannibal Holocaust or something. I might be like, "Yeah, let's watch something else." But she always goes right for Creepshow. She thinks it's so fascinating. So that's a perfect one. If you got kids and you want to start them out on Romero horror, Creepshow is a good starting point, I think. Um, Stuga says I'm 35, so am I. Best we had was the video rental stores for discovering these movies. Yeah, tons of great memories about video stores back in the day. Now, one thing George always talked about with this movie is that his intent to like numb you to the violence, and that really he really does that in this movie. In the context of almost any other movie that you watch, this many headshots and this much bloodshed, people just getting fucking blasted in the face. It would almost like it should be like a traumatic thing to see on screen. But by this point in the movie, we're so used to it. It's just like, oh, gunshot, gunshot to the head, gunshot to the head. And the characters actually have to go through that evolution throughout the movie too. Because if you remember at the beginning of the film, when they're down in the basement shooting the zombies, and it's a painful, sad experience for them. It's a tough thing. They're just trying, they're doing what they think is right. But at this point in the movie, it's just like, fuck it, it's what we got to do. It's what we got to do. They're kind of numb to it at this point. One of these days, I'm going to own one of these cars too. If I could find one that somebody's like restored or something, how fucking cool would that be to fucking roll up in one of those old Scirocco's, I believe. Uh, See, John says, I don't think that scene. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm talking about the ones out in the parking lot. I'm really behind on these comments, guys. I apologize. That scene is in the Argento cut. It's only on the Cannes theatrical. Okay. The one I mentioned one to you on Facebook when we were chatting. I'm trying to remember where I saw it because I swear I've seen. I want to say it was on one of the 4Ks in that box set from Second Sight. I remember seeing it for the first time. I don't know if it's the one that you're talking about though, but I do remember seeing like crew and stuff over on the side. I'd never noticed it before, but hey, since those Tenebrae's final minutes are wild, totally agree. I'm gonna try to catch up on some of these comments, guys. I apologize if I skip over you. Cressy777, have you seen Video Dead 1987? No, I have not. But I remember seeing the video cover at rental stores back in the day. This one I've never caught. McCoy says all the zombies in Nightmare City look like the Toxic Avenger. I like those zombies. There's something about it that just look like they just fucking splattered putty on their face and said, "Run free." Yeah, the director's cut, Stuga says. That's the one that I had in 1999. Yeah, that sounds right. Dave Webb's in the house. What's up, man? Video Dead is great. You also recommend Dead Next Door. That's another one I have not seen. I think Dead Next Door was that's oh, what's his name? He was at the Living Dead weekend a couple years ago. He has I think he was a zombie in Day of the Dead too. Can't think of his name right now though. Um, let me see. I'm trying to catch up on some of these comments, guys. Blake Allen says the scary zombie with one eye and the ring and children shouldn't play with dead things is Bruce Solomon. He has a pretty good filmography. Oh, interesting. I've never heard that name before, but that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's funny. Bob Clark, you look at his career, all the great movies that dude made in like every genre. Like I say this about Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick is one of those filmmakers that you could make an argument that his he's worked in so many genres, and you can make the argument that he has made the best movie in each of those genres. Like you could make the argument that he made the greatest horror movie of all time with The Shining. You could make the argument that he made the greatest, war movie of all time. Science fiction movies, you could say 2001 or Clockwork Orange is the greatest science fiction movie of all time. But Bob Clark is kind of like that too. Like you could say he made the greatest Christmas movie of all time. You could say he made the greatest Christmas horror film of all time. Um, One of the greatest comedies of all time with Porky's. Bob Clark was passed away really, really way too young, and sad because I think he died like 2 weeks or so after he did an interview on the Dead Pit Radio back in the day, and I think he passed away. It was in a car wreck like 2 or 3 weeks after that. So yeah, very unfortunate. Dave says, gun stores and ice skating. Well, the ice rink was actually in the mall at the time. It's now the food court. And that's actually the same ice rink they shot Flashdance, I believe. Um, so yeah, the ice skating rink was there. It was the Ice Palace back in the day, but I think it ended up being changed to the food court in the 80s. Does the real gun store they shot in still exist? I don't know. I don't know for sure. I don't know if it may be something different now. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. What's up, Dirk? Hey, Alpha in chat. I must say, if I am wide awake, I know what film to put on. Shut up, Dirk. Dirk is not a Dawn fan, but we don't hold it against him. He's a good dude. Check out his channel, Subjective Perspective Collective. If you're a fan of Argento, Giallo, Fulci, I mean, this is the guy you want to watch. He's awesome channel. Glad you stopped in, man. Even though this is not your bag, um, good to see you in here, bud. I use that sucker with breadline for everything except sports, expensive sports cars, high end computers. Yeah, I mean you can use that for almost anything. I'm trying to catch up on these comments, guys. Trying to watch the movie at the same time too. I get sucked in different scenes here. Another great scene where apparently while shooting this, Tony Booba and I think Tony Booba and Pat Booba were a little queasy with Galen's portrayal of morning sickness. They were not fans of shooting this part for whatever reason. Demon, yeah, Demon 2 is solid too. Yeah, Demons 1 and 2 are very, very, very good films. I love both of them. Never seen this matte version. I watched a black and white version on YouTube recently. I've seen that out there. I've never checked it out because I just is it any worth checking out? I like watching some things in black and white, but Dawn of the Dead in black and white, I just feel like it would kind of take away some of the comic book aspect, I guess. Let's see. Andy says my brother's girlfriend in high school had a Scirocco, very zippy. That's what I want. Something very zippy. Now, Dirk, come on now. Yawn of the Dead. If you think, come on, if you think Dawn of the Dead is boring, what is wrong with you? How can you hold on? You can watch you can watch Dawn of the Dead and think it's boring, but then you'll get on your channel and talk about Fulci's The Psychic or something like that. It's like, come on. Different strokes though. Different strokes for different folks, I guess. And I like The Psychic. Like I said, I'm a Fulci fan, but man, some of those are a little hard to push through at times. And The Psychic, especially in the first half of that movie, is like that for me. Um, here's an interesting take. Stuga says, I think the baseball zombie is the creepiest. Maybe it's because of that noise in the background. Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes with the Box Arco Pitcairn baseball zombie. That's my fantasy football team name too. I represent Box Arco, and nobody knows what the fuck it means, and I'm just like, yeah, it's my sponsor. That's a good point. Nightmare City, more over the top 20 days later. Yeah. Does the zombies in that remind me of something I was thinking about the other day? I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. But the way that they move and the way that they act, that's what it kind of they reminded me of something. I can't remember what it is though. John says, I just learned a couple of years ago my uncle's aunt, Valerie Manches, was in Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Apparently her chicken was amazing and what inspired my uncle to cook. That's a cool story. Finding out all kinds of people were in that fucking movie. Children Shouldn't Play in the Dead. I'm not sure where that was shot. Um, Blake with a question. Here's a question. When Wooly kicks open the door, what does he kill? I think he killed a living man with one blast and the screaming woman with the next blast. It wasn't a zombie because Roger screamed out. I think it's meant to be. If you pause it, if you freeze frame it, it kind of looks like like a zombie the way it's made up. But I think it's supposed to be a human. I think it's supposed to be just a person hanging out in their apartment. But I could be wrong. I think it's just open to interpretation. But I think it makes the most sense if it was an actual like a human in there that he blasts the head off of. Let me see here. Who else we got? TCCK Film says, for my gaming account, I am recreating them all virtually. I'll let you know when I'm finished. That's do that, man. I've like I've said before, that's my dream is to play a Dawn of the Dead video game, an officially licensed Dawn of the video game. So I would love to see what you're working on, man. And I'll definitely be checking out your fan film too, at some point here after tonight's stream. Fucking gnat. Gun store. No, it was actually a gun store, but it was located. It wasn't actually in the mall. It was Firearms Unlimited, I believe was the name of it. I don't know if it's still a gun store, like I said earlier, but it was an actual gun store. It just wasn't actually in the mall. Opinion on Fulci's Zombie 2. I'm a fan. The Zombie 2 thing, I think the way they sold it to try to be like a sequel to Dawn of the Dead didn't make much sense, but I like the movie. I think it's a really, probably, between that and City of the Living Dead, probably Fulci's best made film, in my opinion. I think it's very, very effective. And the gore in that, I mean, I've said this before, but Fulci's gore in those movies, it's different. It's a different type of gore than we're used to in the United States. It's almost like you can smell the gore through the TV screen or something. It's I love it. Hakeem Watts, what's up, man? I remember you about a month or so ago on a stream. Good to see you in here tonight. Love Dawn of the Dead, as we all do. Maybe outside of Dirt, but like I said, we're not holding it against them. Zombie 3 was my favorite one out of those weird Italian ones. Yeah, that's a good one too. Zombie 3. All right. Again, so bad that it's good. Pitcairn is a road nearby, right? It's a little town. Pitcairn, Pennsylvania. There's actually signs for it in Monroeville. It's not too far from there. I think it's still a gas station, but it's not Box Arco anymore. Yeah, that's true, Hakeem. It was the head that explodes at the beginning was actually the bust of Galen Ross's head that Tom made for the original ending to Dawn of the Dead, where Galen sticks her head in the propeller blades of the helicopter and kills herself. as a mold that they used from that. Of course, saying we all got to help Dirk appreciate good horror films. Yeah, we're working on it, man. We're trying, but no. Okay, Blake says Children was filmed in Dade County, Florida. That makes sense because it looks like something that was shot in Florida. Uh, Dawn intervention, yeah. Maybe that'll be something we'll do at some point on here. We'll get Dirk on the channel and have a Dawn intervention. We'll force him to watch Dawn, and we can all like bombard him and explain to him why it's the greatest fucking movie ever made. Uh, John says it's absolutely a human. Wooly is killing indiscriminately. The problem is, in some prints, the color timing makes him look like a zombie, but he absolutely has darker skin plus hands in his pockets. Yep, there you go. Supersburg says I watched Dawn of the Dead in Betamax, Laserdisc, VHS, Blu-rays, and etc. Now open mat. There you go. Oh, let's see. What's up, buddy? This is one of my favorite scenes. Roger's dying last words here. We're at 1 hour 27 minutes 22 seconds in right now. But I love this little back and forth here between him and Peter. And the makeup, the interesting thing, the way that Savini did the makeup on Scott Reiniger here on the Roger character, and the way that he's died, kind of looks like he's aging in fast forward. Because at this point, he looks like he's an old man. He looks thinner. His nostrils, if you look at his nostrils, the way his nostrils are kind of sucked in, they're very small. His hair is frazzled. It's like he's losing his hair. Um, I love the way they did that. And of course, when he comes back as the zombie here in a second, of course, Savini did the tissue on the face and kind of let it dry out, so it just looked like heavy wrinkled face. Um, but just the dialogue there between him and Peter, I think, is very effective, very well done. Probably one of the best scene performances in the film, in my opinion, is Scott Reiniger there, and just his determination to not come back, even though he knows, and Peter knows, but at this point, Roger, full of morphine and all that Jack Daniels, he's almost like telling himself, like, I'm not coming back. Fuck this. Because at this point in the film, he's just grown to hate the zombies more so than anything. He kind of turns into like Steel in Day of the Dead or something, where he just they're pus brain, pus fucks, or whatever you want to call them. He's kind of at that point now. Dirk says, I've tried McCore several times for whatever reason. It just doesn't click with me. But Night of the Living Dead is my favorite Romero zombie film, and Day is amazing. So, I mean, look, Dirk's got good taste in movies. He's, it's just something about Dawn just doesn't click. I can't say I understand, but I accept it. I accept it. Zombie 2 has great music too. Yeah, I love that. Made a basic cover of the title theme by Fabio Frizzi on my channel. I think I remember seeing that. I think I listened to that. It's great. Roger's back. Of course, Galen Ross should have won an award for her hot tub scene in Mad Men. Galen Ross was not in Mad Men, sir. That was Alexis Dubin. People just get her and Galen mixed up. So get it right. Yeah, Dirk prefers the Argento cut. I've heard him say that before, which makes sense because Dirk is a huge Italian horror guy, so that makes sense. And it definitely moves a little quicker. Hakeem says, I loved all the nuances of Dawn. It was survival greed, being strong and willing to die for what's yours. Yeah. And the foolishness of that, almost in a way. the willingness to die for what's yours, quote unquote. Um, Sometimes you got to let it go just to survive to see the next day. And Peter kind of understands that at the end of the film here, but Flyboy kind of becomes entranced with them all, and that's his downfall. I think we all can identify with that in some way. It's almost like that. It's like when people say, "Oh, if your house catches fire, you know, your first instinct is like, oh, of course, you make sure your family and stuff's out, but you also want to take some like collectibles or prized possessions and stuff. But really, you should just let it go, live to see another day, type of thing." Uh, I agree with this, McCore. Smoke a doobie and watch it. I agree. I can say that about most movies. Yeah, under the right influences, you can see movies that you've seen 100 times. You'll see them differently. I'll just say that. Um, Stu says, "Man, Richard Francis is great in this. Crazies too. Yeah, kind of typecast. He kind of plays the same character in both, but yeah, he's fantastic in both of those movies. Again, another one of my favorite scenes here. Just a subtle character building thing that kind of again expands upon Stephen and Fran's relationship. Although I will say in the Argento cut, this scene's a little expanded, where he kind of Stephen kind of plays pick a hand type with Fran. It's kind of playful and lighthearted, and then it kind of goes into the heartbreaking moment here. So I thought that worked really nice. Like there are parts that are in the Argento cut that are not in either of Romero's cuts that I do like. I do kind of wish were. Like the scene earlier when Flyboy, for those of you who've seen it, Flyboy, when they kind of secure them all and fly, or not secure them all, but the first time that they get their stuff and come back up, and Flyboy's like, yeah, what's the big deal? We kicked the shit out of them today. It didn't even touch us. And Peter has to kind of reel him back in and kind of tell him like, no, they touched us good, Flyboy. Don't fucking forget that, or you're gonna get bitten. And then I love the line. It kind of brings it home, and it kind of because people talk about like, oh, fast zombies, slow zombies. People are like, oh, fast zombies, you could never get away and you'd be done for. But the thing that people forget is just like slow zombie, fast zombie doesn't matter. How are you going to react when your loved ones turn and come for you? Are you going to be able to chop like if my daughter, my 3-year-old daughter turned? I don't think I'd be able to. I'd be like, all right, honey, but you can have me. Like I can't. Here you go. I couldn't cut her head off. And Peter was just trying to reinforce that with Flyboy and making sure Flyboy doesn't get too far ahead of himself. But yeah, anyway, off on a little side tangent. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up here. They're in full apartment mode now. And like I said, I like in the cans cut. There's more shopping sequence going on there. But it's like a depressed, like the first shopping montage that you see where they're going through the mall stealing stuff. It's like fun and lighthearted, but the second one is just kind of like everyday life. It's just another thing for him now. It's not a big deal. I think that works really well. Yeah, puss brain bags of shit. You puss brain bags of shit. I'll kick your fucking asses. Come on. I think it's hilarious that Day of the Dead gets played on TV all the time, or it used to. I don't know. I haven't really seen what they play on TV anymore these days, but the overdubs, the clean overdubs for sci-fi, were pretty hilarious back in the day. Where was I? McHorror prefers Night 90 over the original. I've heard that. Can't say I agree, but I've heard that. Night 90 was the first zombie movie I ever saw. It has a special place in my heart. Since I just rewatched Madman, it's a tough watch, but I like Galen. Yeah, it's not the greatest. Some people really like it. Some people not so much. I kind of fall in the not so much category, but that's just me. My taste. I'm not a huge slasher fan. Be honest with you. Like a lot of the like To me, like, I try to watch them. Like, back when I was a kid, I loved them. I was like, "Oh, this is so cool, it's so fun," but watching a lot of them now, it's just kinda like, "Yeah, I know where this is going." It's a formulaic thing. It's like, if you've seen Friday the 13th, you've kinda seen them all, outside of, like, certain ones that are special in their own ways, but, um I love this piece of music here too. Can't remember the name of it off the top. It's like Cantando or something. Dirk says, I first watched the Crazies on your watch along and love it. Awesome. Season of the Witch gets hate, but really dig that too. See, Dirk has good taste in movies, guys. He just has one little blind spot, but we let him we let him slide with it. Um, that's interesting take here from Blake. Always took Roger saying Jesus is everywhere as Fran saying it's all over, isn't it? Just a foreshadow. That's interesting. I've never really thought of it that way. Hakeem says, I actually like Martin now. I didn't like it at first. I've heard that before too. Martin's kind of one that has to grow on you. You got to watch it a couple times to kind of let it sink in, I think. Because it can be a little slow at times, I'll admit. Of course, says, have you ever seen At Close Range? It's probably my most watched film besides Dawn and Day. I haven't. I've At Close Range. I don't think I've never seen it. I don't know too much about it, to be honest with you. Blake says for Richard Francis' character death was kind of funny in the Crazies. He knew the cure and was knocked downstairs and killed. That's the interesting thing about the Crazies in that scene. I always just assumed I took it at face value and assumed that that's what happened. Um, then I was kind of that kind of was brought to my attention. Was like, well, did he actually have the cure, or was he going crazy too? Because if you remember when he's working with the working with the samples and stuff, and working with the what the fuck you call it, the thing that you look into. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. Um, but yeah, when he's working with it without the mask, so he's like, close up exposed to the virus. So does he get it and become crazy and think he has the cure, or did he actually have the cure? Yeah, just an idea. Interesting thing to think about. But yeah, that is a total Romero sequence there. That well, we had the cure, but we have the answer to fix everything, but the our the way we fuck up everything as it goes ends up being our downfall. So of course we got Tom Savini, Rudy Ritchie. The bikers are on their way. Of course, Rudy Ritchie of the Booby Hatch fame. And of course, one of my favorite bikers in this group is you can see her in the background there. So Trudy Gray, she's got the red bandana. She's got some great stories. Met her first year I went to Living Dead Weekend. She was there, and I ended up talking to her for a while. And she's the sweetest, nicest person, and just had some really awesome stories about kind of being the only biker chick there and kind of having to prove herself because she was actually, an actual biker. Like she rode motorcycles and stuff. And she just kind of showed up with her bike, and of course, a lot of these people are actually real bikers in a real gang. And they're just like, oh, what's the chick doing here with with the motorcycle? What is she gonna do? And she kind of had to show him. She's like, oh, I can ride. So she kind of had to prove herself. And by the end of it, they were like, holy shit, she's one of us. So, but yeah, Trudy's awesome. I love Trudy. Um, yeah, that's a good scene too. There, sent the drop it off the drugstore scene that gets cut out. It's in the cans cut. Love that line there, and love that scene. Um, Of course, is what are some of your favorite slashers that you like? Like I said, Maniac, definitely at the top of the list. Original Friday the 13th 's okay. I love Friday the 13th Part 5. That's probably my favorite Friday the 13th, to be honest with you, just because it's fun, and that's the most important part. Um, what are some other slashers? I guess Black Christmas, you can call that a slasher. That's kind of the original slasher, I guess. Halloween, I guess you can call. Although I don't know if I would call Halloween a slasher as much as it is a stalker movie, because it's more about the hard the that's what I think most like all the sequels got wrong about what was so effective about the original Halloween, was that it's not about the slashing or the kills. It was about the creepiness of the Michael Myers character just kind of lurking in the shadows and appearing and disappearing and just stalking these people. I don't know. I guess you could call it a slasher though. Um, Bikers are here. I don't know. There are some. They're escaping me at the moment. Like I said, I like them for what they are, but these days it just feels like there's a lot of. I think that's where the glass on the outside of that entrance ended up getting smashed in the filming of this. It was a big deal at the time. But yeah, I just feel like a lot of slashers now, when you go back and watch them, they're kind of formulaic. And Sleepaway Camp, that's a good one. That one had a fun ending, to say the least. Um, an ending that you couldn't get away with nowadays. We'll just say that. The Burning, that's a good one. I like The Burning a lot. Um, Prowler's okay. I like the Prowler for some of the effects. Um, Prom Night's okay. But yeah, a lot of them, a lot of them, if unless you have like a real um, Silent Night, Deadly Night, that's a fun one. I guess that's a way to put it. It's a fun one. But unless you have like a real nostalgia for it, I think they're kind of, they're all kind of the same thing, in my opinion. A lot of the times, every now and then you get something different. But I have not. Humongous. I've not seen that one. That's a highly underrated slasher. I don't think I've heard of that. Yeah, I'll have to check out At Close Range. I don't think I've heard of it. Um, I think it sounds familiar, but I'm not certain what it's about or who's in it or what's going on there. Burial Ground, 1981 Italian version of Night of the Living Dead. That's an interesting take. TCCK films. I have not seen the Crazies yet. Anything I should know before watching? I mean, the Crazies. I'm a huge Crazies fan. It's definitely early George, low budget, um, all shot in Evans City. That's why if you ever go visit these locations in Pittsburgh, Evans City is just kind of like one big location for the Crazies. But it's fun. I would say watch it more with the idea that, so in the remake of the Crazies, this is where I think they got the remake wrong. In the remake of the Crazies, it's all about the people that get infected with the disease or whatever, and it's basically a zombie movie. Whereas George's The Crazies is not so much about the virus, so to say, or the people that are infected by it. It's more the reaction of the U.S. government and the reaction of the military, and how that's, which, over the last 5 years or so, we've kind of discovered that that's very true to life. That the problem is usually the government's, how should I say this? The government's solution to these problems is most of the time, or the military solutions to these problems is most of the time worse than the actual problem itself. But yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. Um, like I said, it's low budget. It's old school, early '70s George. But you can definitely see George's editing style. You can see him. Excuse me. You can see him starting to figure out kind of his style. That you kind of come to see later on in movies like Dawn of the Dead and Night Riders and stuff like that. But yeah, I recommend it. Um, Alice, Sweet Alice, that's a good slasher. I just watched not long ago. I guess if you call it a slasher, it's more of like an American giallo, I guess you can call it. Yeah, I agree with that. Prowler, really good kills, story a bit lacking. I agree with that. Um, since I always love the cheesy binoculars insert, not realistic, but it got the point across. Yeah, it got the point across. Um, Thoughts on Serpent and the Rainbow? That's one I haven't seen in many, many years. I remember liking it, like appreciating that it was a well-made movie, but it wasn't anything that I actually just like fell in love with. Um, I love the concept though. I think that's something that doesn't get explored enough. Is like the Haitian voodoo zombie, because I mean that's all based off. I wouldn't say it's all based on real events or anything like that, but I mean that's kind of how it's really done. Um, but yeah, it's fine. I remember liking it. I just never fell in love with it, I guess. See, Peter's trying to be logical here. Flyboy's fucking shit up, and Peter's just like, dude, just stay out of sight. They don't care about us. Then they start shooting at Peter, and Peter's like, all right, fuck it, it's a war. Peter's like, no, no, you're shooting at me now. Y'all fucked up. I just love that turn there. As soon as he gets shot at, it's like logic goes out the window. It's like, all right, guys, let's go to war. Fuck y'all. Um, Interesting. Since his first slasher and gore film was actually H.G. Lewis's Blood Feast, 1963. Yeah, Herschel Gordon. That's a guy I've never really gotten into is Herschel Gordon Lewis and a lot of his stuff from the '60s. I saw they had it at a local store here. They had I don't know if anybody's seen this movie or if it was anything worth picking up. Um, Fuck, what was it called? It was an Arrow release, but it was a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie from like '68, I believe. It's like what was it called? It was a girls on motorcycle movie. I can't remember what it was called, so I probably shouldn't even have brought it up. But anybody knows what I'm talking about. Let me know if it's worth picking up. I might go get it. Let's see. Blake says I got hardcover Dawn of the Dead with Romero and Sparrow about 25 years ago. Most disturbing thing to me is that the bikers pointing and laughing as their brethren was taken down and eaten. Yeah, yeah. I. If you're a fan of this movie, I highly recommend checking out the book and reading it because it kind of gives you know, it kind of gives more of a look at the smaller details of the characters and situations and stuff that you don't really get in the movie. I highly recommend it. And there's like a because in the original screenplay there was supposed to be a puppy that they rescue from a puppy store named Adam, and that's included in the book, which I thought was an interesting. But you know, I'm sure George at this point was like, "We're trying to work in a mall. Like I'm trying to make all this happen with very little to no money. I don't feel like working with a puppy at this point. Let's cut the puppy out." Working with animals is pretty tough, which George would later find out on Monkey Shines. Uh, Friday the 13th up the slasher Annie. Yeah, Friday the 13th to me, I feel like Dawn of the Dead was more of to me the '80s slasher craze began with Dawn of the Dead, if that makes any sense. Because the '80s slasher craze in the early '80s is really all about the effects, the kills, the gore. Um, and I think in the United States, I mean, Tom Savini was kind of the go-to guy for that. I mean, through all those early '80s slasher films, and I think Friday the 13th took more, which a lot of people say like Friday the 13th was a ripoff of Halloween, but to me, I feel like it was more of a ripoff from Dawn of the Dead. I feel like they saw Dawn of the Dead and said, "Let's do that," but take like kind of the concept of Bay of Blood, really, um, and just put all this extra gore and over the top effects in it, and it sold. I mean, it was a huge, huge hit. I think it came out the same weekend as The Shining, and it kicked The Shining's ass in theaters back then. So, see, this is an interesting thing that people always talk about. Um, the blood pressure machine, Tony Booba checking his blood pressure, um, which you can use your imagination. To me, the guy was desperate to check his blood. When you're on the road and surviving in the middle of the zombie apocalypse, maybe the guy had high blood pressure. Um, and maybe he was desperate to check it. Who knows? Either way, however you want to put it, it was a setup for a gag. They wanted to rip his arm off, and it was just the setup for that. So, um, Justin, what's up, man? I really like this. Really like those sub movies when they just throw buckets of blood at the character. That's a good zombie movie. Zombie 90 Extreme Pestilence. Anybody hasn't checked that out, I highly recommend doing it. Dude, that was one of the like funnest times I've ever had watching a movie. Was that night we stayed up late and watched Zombie 90. I don't think I've laughed as hard in my life. But I'm glad to see you in here, man. I hope you're doing well. Um, John says, I have to remember to ask Gornick if they kept the BP trucks parked at the mall. The original scenes were shot in November, but the bikers were shot early January and the trucks are right in the spot. That's a good question. That is a good question. Let me know when you find that out, man. Because, yeah, that would make sense. They'd have to just be parked at the mall because they'd have to just park them there every night that they would be shooting, especially at that entrance there. Of course, that's Larry Vera. This part of the movie is where I wish Alex was in here right now. He'd be telling us who every single one of these guys were and their background and history. And that dude's awesome. I was glad he stopped in last week. I didn't see Thanksgiving. I haven't checked out Thanksgiving yet. Not a huge Eli Roth fan, but I've heard good things. Biggest piece of meat in the chat. Dirk says Crazy's remake I can't stand. Yeah, I'm not. The first time I saw it, I was like, yeah, it's not so bad. But I went back and rewatched it here recently, and I was just bored with it more than anything, to be honest with you. Like, I was kinda over that movie by, like, halfway through. I was just like, I don't even wanna finish this." Um, yeah, good call. If anybody can catch that part. George is Santa Claus back there. Anybody know what what the name of that character? Because the character, I mean, in the screenplay, there is a character, a biker member dressed in a Santa Claus outfit, and he has a name in the screenplay, and I think the book as well. Anybody know what that name is? Whoever comes up with it, I'll give you bonus points. That was the only zombie mentioned in 3 movies. Peter's, yeah, that's true too. You never hear the word zombie mentioned unless there's gonna be 1,000 zombies in here. Uh, that's a good point. Yeah. First zombie I ever saw was the voodoo zombie in Kolchak, Night Stalker. That's interesting. Hakeem says, I love how George Romero kept the continuity with the people he cast in his earlier movies, and Dwayne Johnson and Ken Foree were badass. Yeah, they were actually, Dwayne Johnson and Ken Foree were actually friends too, which I think Ken Foree was, I think he was acting in New York at the time. I think is where he was, because it's funny, all 4 of these characters outside of Scott Reiniger was a New York-based guy. I think he was born in New York, if I'm not mistaken, but the rest of these guys are Indiana. Of course, David Emge here, obviously from right here in Evansville, Indiana. But Ken Foree and Galen Ross are both from Indianapolis. So it's kind of interesting how that worked out. A bunch of Indiana folks. See, Night Terror 1933 and Spiral Staircase 1946 are both proto slashers, but I'm sure there might be earlier slashers than those, especially with the German expressionism films. That's a good point. Um, not sure. I'm not the like I said. I'm not the expert on slashers as much. But that'd be an interesting conversation. I'd love to hear. Uh, Victor Miller was told admitted he was told to rip off Halloween. I mean, I get it. I mean, Halloween was so successful at the time. I mean, why not take 2 of the most successful horror movies of the late '70s, Dawn of the Dead and Halloween, and combine them? And that's basically what Friday the 13th did. And I mean, it was a huge success. Bikers from the local pagans, and yeah, I think that was the name of the gang there. Let See, I don't know how much caught up here. A little bit behind. TCCK films. I wonder what your opinion is with using guns in zombie films versus a slasher film regarding the plot. Uh, I think it makes sense. I feel like guns are probably the most effective weapon to use in a zombie film. But as you can see, they use all kinds of shit in Dawn of the Dead. They were just finding screwdrivers, machetes, hammers. Wish Romero and Carpenter did something together. They were supposed to at one point. Carpenter, I think, was originally he was either originally going to or was asked to by Dario to do a story for Two Evil Eyes. It was supposed to be like a another anthology, but I think it just ended up being George and Dario just for budgetary reasons. But I think John Carpenter was a name that was supposed to be involved in that. Stephen King too, I believe. Let's see. John says, but oddly, they use the word zombie in the Night of the Living Dead script as well as George giving direction to the extras. That's in. Well, see, the Night of the Living Dead, they always say, "Oh, they're ghouls." How can you not say David Emge's zombie walk there is the best ever? I mean, just the way he was able to contort his body and just this walk. I mean, he's walking on this foot. It's incredible. And of course, this always the point of conversation here when it comes to why Flyboy. Of course, he still has the memory, I guess, of like how to get up to the stairwell and get back to where he's supposed to be, get back to his baby mama. There's always the debate of like, does he do it because he knows that there's food up there, or does he do it because in his mind he's just trying to get back to the hideout because he knows instinctively in his mind like that's where he needs to go to escape. But in terms, of course, in doing that, he leads the rest of them up there with him. In my opinion, I don't think it's intentional. I think he's just working on the instinct of knowing that that's where he needs to get back to, and it just so happens to lead the rest of them there. I think he's as most zombies are. I feel like he's probably very oblivious to what's going on around him. Uh, um, yeah, White Zombie, 1932. Brutal Massacre comedy with Ken Ford and Gunnar Hansen. I remember seeing it at Walmart on DVD back in the day, but I never watched it. Hakeem says Scott and David worked together at the same restaurant in New York called Lady Astor's. Yeah, that's correct. John Amplis worked there as well. Christine Romero worked there. Um, yeah, a lot of people that George ended up working with and casting. A lot of actors worked at Lady Astor's back in the day. All right, I think I'm about caught up on these comments, guys, as we are almost near the end of this movie. Justin says he thinks it's habit. I agree. It's just as he knows where to go. See, Stukas Flyboy turned quick. So I've heard that too. It's like, oh, it took Roger 3 days or so to die and come back, whereas Flyboy, it couple hours, 2-3 hours at the most, but he dies quicker. Roger gets bit twice, and they tend to it and bandage and try to, he hangs on for as long as he can, whereas Flyboy is bitten 5 or 6 times, one in the neck, probably right in the jugular. He probably bled out fairly quickly in that elevator. And as soon as he died, he comes back. So I think that explains why he turns a lot quicker than Roger does. I think the more, because it's not about, the thing is, the bites don't kill you. Like, I don't know. In my opinion, I don't think the bites have anything. I think when you die, you come back, no matter if you're bitten, shot, fall off a roof, run over by a car, whatever it is. As long as your brain is still intact, you're going to come back. And I think if you're bitten as much as Flyboy was bitten, you're going to bleed out, you're going to die, you're going to come back. I think that's just all it is. Just my opinion. I think Flyboy as a zombie was just trying to delete his browser history. He was like, all right, I got to get back there. I got to do one last thing here before I go. That's a, that's an awesome comment. That's hilarious. Yeah, that's the thing. King Flyboy was shot and bit. Yeah, I mean he was fucked up, which explains why he was walking the way that he was, which is why he chose to do it that way. He was kind of going off of where his wounds were and shit when Imgi was asked about it. Empire of the Dead comic book series I never checked out. And I'm not a huge comic book fan. I do have some of the different Romero stuff that's been put out over the years, but I know that's one of the last things that George was working on before he died. Yeah, I remember him being on a couple of interviews promoting that over the years. So Peter says, "Nope, not tonight. I gotta get that helicopter." And what do you guys think about this one? This is a theory of mine. When Jay Stover here, the zombie that holds the rifle to his head the entire movie, why does he do that? To me, in his brain, in his memory, he's he wants somebody to pull that trigger. He wants somebody to shoot him in the head and end this existence. But nobody does. They just keep giving him different guns. Poor guy. It's just funny. That's just my theory. I don't know. And off they go into the sunrise, into the dawn, to where we'll never know. What do you guys think? Where do they end up? Yeah, that's it. Dawn of the Dead, 1978, 35 millimeter open matte version. Pretty damn cool. And now that you guys have the link to this, you can go back and rewatch it, pause it, see what you can discover. Because that's definitely what I did the first time that I saw like an open mat of the Argento cut. I just was like going through like shot by shot, like, oh look, you can see an extra zombie over here, or you can see a camera reflection of Mike Gornick over here. Where was I at here? Blake says infection kills you. Flyboy was bitten on the neck and died quickly. But is it the infection that kills you though? Was that ever proven? Stuff, in Romero's universe, of course, there are, a lot of zombie films that use that premise that the infection is what kills you. But I don't think anybody really knows for sure. But I would kind of agree with that. I think there is some type of infection that poisons you and kills you quicker than normal. So yeah, that makes sense. Dong. So real quick before I get to this comment, the bell here, the gong at the end, not the song, the gong, but the ding dong dong dong. Last day, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off now. Let me go back here. But the last day, the first time I visited Pittsburgh, went to Living Dead weekend. The last day in Monroeville, as it's like a Sunday evening, right around 6 o'clock. That clock, there's a clock tower in Monroeville that goes off on the hour, and that sound is spot on. I mean, it's the exact sound that you hear at the end of Dawn of the Dead, and it was almost like the most fitting thing that I could ever hope for. Okay, I gotta. Heat is starting to play for some reason, which is interesting because Heat, Pat Booba was an editor on Heat. Why does this keep fucking playing? Hang on a second. All right, I gotta get my screen back to normal here. All right, let me go through these comments here real quick. Where was I at? Here we are. Synthetic. Steve wanted to go back to an important place in his life. That's true. That was home for. I guess they were probably in that mall for about 3 months. I would guess. That's just my estimation. I'm a little sweaty sitting here under this light. Yeah. Flyboy snatched down the elevator, broke his ankle. Makes sense. TCCK Film says the Gonk was a very interesting song for the credits. Yeah, I mean it's I don't know, it's iconic. I mean they used it in like Robot Chicken. That was like the theme for Robot Chicken years later. And of course, there's like an ode to it in Day of the Dead and John Harrison's score. Stuka says, I guess the Jay Stover zombie was a gun collector, admires good firearms. That's it's a good take. I could buy that. Yeah, that's since pointing out that Argento version has doesn't have the gonk in it. Yeah, a lot of the mall music and stuff like that's not in the Argento version. I mean, a lot of that. There's none of the library stuff in the Argento version. Some of it's good, some of it, a little out there, but of course, as you should make a video deep diving into the Dead films. You seem really knowledgeable on them. I appreciate that, man. That's kind of what I'm doing channel wide. Like I said, past couple of weeks, last week I did a little deep dive on the main 4 characters from Dawn of the Dead. This week we're doing a little watch along here for the 35mm open matte version. And then next week I'm planning on doing something for covering Day of the Dead. I got something kind of cool in mind. So, and then after that, it's going to be Living Dead weekend, Creep Show 2. I actually just watched Night of the Creeps for the first time earlier this week. Loved it. I think I just can't believe it took me this long to finally watch it, but that's so good. And yeah, Thrill Me has been going through my mind a lot this week. But yeah, like next week, I'm planning on doing something with Day of the Dead, because I haven't really done a whole lot with Day of the Dead. I've done some Night of the Living Dead stuff. I've done, I kind of just week to week, just whatever's I'm kind of interested in is kind of what I go for. But this Day of the Dead stream I'm planning on doing next week, and something I've kind of been had in the back of my mind for quite some time. Full soundtrack is outstanding because I'm a man. It's just as brilliant as Goblin. I completely agree with that. I never wake up early in the morning. Don't get home till late at night. I bought the library, the yellow library track CD back in the day. Me and my cousin Justin, who's in here, I don't know if he's still watching or not, but when we went to Dallas to the Texas Frightmare weekend, that was one of the things I bought, was the yellow library track, and that was like the song that I just played over and over again as soon as I got it. One of the main reasons I bought it. Well, I mean, it's Dawn of the Dead library music. I was thrilled to fucking see it, but I mean, just that having that song was like a big plus. Stephen Craig, what's up, man? Damn, you're handsome. What's your deal? I just found the channel. Thank you. I'm old, but I'm hanging in there. I appreciate the compliment, sir. What's my deal? I don't know. I don't know what my deal is. That's been a question that's been on my mind for many years. What is my deal? What the hell is wrong with me? But glad to have you in here, man. I appreciate the compliment, sir. They cut off Miguel's arm to stop in Day of the Dead. That's a good point. Did it though? Did it actually stop it? We don't really know by the end of it. Then he just kind of ends up dying anyway. Hakeem says the eerie chords they used made it sound more chilling. Agree. Which one we got here? I always assume that death made them zombies regardless of infection. Yeah, I mean, if you die and your head is intact, unless you were decapitated or your head was smashed in, you come back. I mean, you die. That's why I said that the thing about Romero's zombie films, it's not about infection. Like 28 Days Later was brilliant the way they did it, because it was about the infection that turns you. If you got the virus or the disease, you turned. If you just died, you didn't have to worry about it. But the thing about George's zombie films as opposed to something like that is like George is like if you die, you come back, and that's why it's a winless war. Like you can't win because nobody can beat death. Everybody dies at some point, and when you die, you're gonna come back. No cure for it. Whereas in 20 Days Later, it was all about the infection. So over time, the people that were infected just ended up starving to death, and that's how the whatever the hell you call it, the not I guess you would be it would be an epidemic, I guess you'd say would came to an end. Um, Justin saying I'd say everyone is already infected. You turn when you actually die. That's a good point too. Which kind of plays back to like Night of the Living Dead and the idea that the radiation in the air, maybe we all got contaminated by it by the space probe that came crashing into the Earth's atmosphere or whatever. Steven says, I just saw the film in 3D on the big screen. How that was pretty cool, and it was worth seeing. I'm sorry they aren't making 3D TVs for home 3D viewing anymore. Yeah, that's the thing. I actually own Dawn of the Dead on 3D, like a Blu-ray from Turkey or something like that. I don't remember where the hell I got it from, but yeah, I can't watch it. It was just something that I found on eBay for fairly cheap. But yeah, seeing it in 3D was pretty fun. I kind of I'm not a huge 3D fan to begin with. It's for a nerd like me that wears glasses. It's hard to wear the 3D glasses over my glasses, so it's kind of a little uncomfortable. But I don't usually see a lot of shit in 3D. But Dawn of the Dead in theaters, like I'll watch it in 3D, 4D. I'll watch Dawn of the Dead, projected on the back of a barn somewhere. I'll be there to watch it. So. Um, since says Jay's character was the sucker with the bread to buy the gun, and that's the undead still wanted. That's true. That's a good point too. Maybe he had had his eye on that gun for many months leading up to that. And then he dies and ends up going back to the mall looking for that fucking gun, and then finally he gets it, and he's a happy zombie from then on out. That's a good way to put it. Uh, Keith says Miguel was a pussy. Well, we'd all be in that situation, I think. Atkins is great in The Creeps, yeah, and Thrill Me, yeah. He was so good in that movie. I love Tommy. He's going to be at Living Dead Weekend this year too. I've met Tommy Atkins before. He's super cool guy. Blake says Brian Solomon I mentioned earlier from Children is a Night of the Creeps. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look him up. I don't, is he gonna be at Living Dead Weekend this year? I don't remember. A lot of them are though. It's a big reunion for Night of the Creeps. I think even Fred Decker's going to be there, and Fred Decker never does conventions. But Felsher told me he was like, "Yeah, I think Fred's he just wanted to see them all." I was like, "That makes sense. It's a free excuse to travel to Monroeville and see them all." Screaming like banshees. Yeah, well, it's screaming like a banshee. I don't know, is that racist? Maybe I shouldn't do that. Let me get booted. Opinion on Day of the Dead original script. I like it. I mean, it's cool. I'm kind of okay with what we got. I think the version that we got is more compact, succinct, and gets the point across, and I think it's really effective. The original Day script is bigger. There's more action. There's more going on. But at times reading it, I was just kind of confused on what was going on a lot of the time. So maybe bringing that to the screen, if they had been able to pull it off the way that it was intended, George's original vision, maybe it would have been different. But yeah, I remember hearing everybody saying like, "Oh yeah, that original Day script was like Ben Hur with zombies." That's what Tom Savini would say, or Nicotero would say. It was like Raiders of the Lost Ark with zombies. I remember reading it and I was like, it's good, but I'm like, I don't know, I don't think it's that great. It's just a lot of shit in it, a lot more effects and action and explosion, which it's kind of what I was expecting the first time I saw Day of the Dead, and I was kind of disappointed that it wasn't that, because I was thinking it was going to be Dawn of the Dead Part 2 or something like that. When I saw Day of the Dead the first time, I was like, it's kind of fucking boring. Like, these people are just kind of hanging around in this cave, just yelling at each other the whole time. I don't get it. But over time, after I rewatched it a couple times, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Ended up falling in love with it, definitely. Blake says every time you hear "Because I'm a Man," your mind's eye sees every scene. That's true. That's true. It's almost like a little music video almost for that song. McCourt says it plays a hippie song while showing, yeah, in the Argento cut. It's like, anyway, mouth music with Alfa Romero tonight, folks. George Romero and John Russo really had beef years later over the use of the Living Dead name. Yeah, I mean, they were, They stopped working together in the early '70s. I think the last thing that they worked on together was There's Always Vanilla, I think. I think John may have, or was it Season? I can't remember. But yeah, they kind of had a little disagreement, which, I mean, John Russo's a hell of a nice guy. If you ever talk to him, if you ever meet him, he's a nice guy, but I could see how he could probably get under your skin a little bit. You might be pretty easy to have some disagreements with with Mr. Russo on some things. Steven says, the lady that ran the theater told me she'd wanted to show it forever, but the owner wanted way too much money to screen it in the past. Yeah, I guess, that would be Richard Rubenstein. Um, which I guess he's coming around to it now because there's rumors of a possible, which I've heard rumors that this isn't happening or this is happening. I've heard different stories from different people. Um, that there's a US physical media release coming soon that if, I don't know too much about it. But that was always a story over the years that Richard Rubenstein refused to do a physical release because he put all this money into this 3D version and was trying to sell it on a theater run or something like that. And it's kind of been playing theaters over the last 3 years in kind of a wide. They played the 3D version a couple of years ago. Last year they played the 2D version on a lot of screens. This year they've kind of brought them both out. They're kind of doing a lot of, like, I've seen, triple features with night, dawn, and day. Um, so I feel like he's kind of opening up a little bit where he's been very guarded because he owns Martin and he owns Dawn of the Dead. He owns those two properties. Um, which is why, I say that I don't think he's discovered YouTube yet because, I mean, they're all over YouTube for free, and he doesn't seem to give a shit. Um, but yeah, that's Richard Rubenstein there. What I always heard is that in terms of like a physical release, Richard always wanted to sell Martin and Dawn as a package deal, which is why Second Sight ended up getting a hold of Dawn of the Dead and Martin. Of course, they did the Dawn of the Dead box set, and then a couple 2 or 3 years later, they ended up putting out the Martin box set, which both of those are fantastic. I cannot stress enough how good those releases are that Second Sight did. I mean, Second Sight's just killing it in pretty much anything that they do. Um, but yeah, that's why I always heard that he wanted like at least. I've never heard a number, but I mean it was in like $1 million range that Richard was looking for the rights to those two films. And there's just, I mean, the state of physical media these days, and just the all mostly what we got left are these boutique labels that are not making tons and tons of money like a lot of bigger labels were back in the day. Um, and so there really wasn't anybody willing to dish out that kind of money. But maybe he's changed that over the years. I'm not sure, but I mean, just seeing the movie in theaters again is really really kind of opening that up. Um, to where you're thinking like, oh, you know, maybe he's gonna let some things happen. The copyright on 3D version had 2013 as well, which makes me wonder if that's the one that was used on your Turkey Blu-ray or if that came from somewhere else. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'm not sure about that, but I do know that 2013 would be the copyright because I mean he did the 3D restoration or whatever you want to call it for Dawn of the Dead years ago. And we always read about it online. We always heard about it, and I remember they would screen it here and there. I think they screened it at Living Dead Weekend some years back. I think it was maybe for the 40th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken, 2018. But he would screen it here and there, but it just never got a wide release or anything until recently. So he just was kind of hanging on to it, holding on to it for all these years. So it took 9-10 years for it to actually get the theatrical run. Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Sent. Had the day script in high school, preferred the theatrical version. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. It's a fun script to read, but like I'm perfectly fine with what we got. To be honest with you. Return of the Living Dead. Yeah, John Russo wrote a book called Return of the Living Dead, and ended up selling the rights to. I don't know who the hell bought the rights, but they ended up making the movie out of it. But they pretty much just said, okay, John, we'll give you the money for the name, but your book and your idea for the movie, we're going to go a completely different direction. So yeah, John Russo is associated with the movie Return of the Living Dead, but really just in name only. Because the movie that we got is actually more of a Dan O'Bannon movie. It's his script. It's his. He ended up directing, and that's great movie. I think they probably made the right decision there. Blake says the dead walks infection from bites just kills quicker. Had a tooth cut. Wait, what? Had a tooth cut my uncle in a fight once. That's an interesting story. I want to hear that. And had to go get it washed out and cleaned because swollen double. So imagine a zombie mouth. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, just think about that. So who knows? It's kind of like what what Ben says. And I learned who knows what kind of diseases those things carry. Dead people, let alone living people. I wonder that all the time. It's like, what kind of diseases do those things carry over there? Just people walking through Walmart. I'm like, who knows what kind of diseases those things carry? um, yeah, that's a good point. Think of that when Peter punches the zombies. Mayor, what's up, man? Good to see you in here. We just got through finished watching Dawn of the Dead 35 millimeter, the open matte version. If you ever want to check it out, the link's down in the description. It's free on YouTube. It's pretty damn cool to watch. It says, I just want Day of the Dead 4K. I already have the Dawn 4K. Yeah, the Day of the Dead 4K is an interesting one. I've heard different things, but mainly the main gist that I got is that the materials are missing. Like the original camera negative and some of the original sound materials are just kind of nobody knows. I've heard different rumors of where they may be, but for the most part, that there's no original source material to go back to do a 4K restoration on. But yeah, that's kind of one of those things that when it does happen, I mean, I think that it would look and sound fantastic. Because that's the thing about people don't talk about 4. People always talk about the video transfer, the visual look of a 4K, but the sound quality on a 4K is like 10 times. If you have a good sound setup, like I have, a couple of good speakers, I have a pretty good sound setup here, and you can tell the difference between a 4K and a Blu-ray in terms of sound quality. It's like 10 times better. I mean, you feel, and I mean, sound quality on Blu-ray is fine, but on a 4K, you hear like it's like the Suspiria 4K from Synapse is a perfect example. The sound mix on that. If you go back, if you watch Suspiria with the original Italian sound mix, it sounds like you feel it. Like I don't know how to explain it. It's so amazing. I highly recommend doing that if you ever get a chance to. Since says they actually sell a combo Blu-ray of Dawn of the Dead remake and Land of the Dead. Yeah, I've seen that. They did that for the DVD back in the day too. Both Universal films. I mean, that's really the only thing I can think about it. Dirk says, take care, man. Always a great time here. And you are the Romero scholar on the tubes, and I always learn something new about George when I drop in. Well, man, I sure appreciate you dropping in. I try to. I have a lot of useless fucking knowledge about George in my head, so I try to disseminate it when I can. But yeah, all I do is I learn from other people who are know more than me, and I just have the balls to get on here and talk about it. So, but good to see you in here, man. I appreciate you stopping by. And one of these days, man, we're gonna convince you that Dawn of the Dead is the fucking horror masterpiece that it is, whether you like it or not. But good to see you, man. See, the mayor says he has that double feature Blu-ray. Got super cheap, just for land. Yeah, like I said, it's just two. They're both Universal films, so that's probably why they packaged them together like that. Hakeem says, "Hey everyone, Harry Cooper was right." I agree with that. I do think Harry Cooper was right. I don't think he was evil. I don't think he was like a mean spirited, hateful guy. I just think he was a scared dad. Yeah, maybe his marriage wasn't the greatest with Helen, but I think if you go back and watch it, every decision that he made, everything went back to his daughter. Like he wanted to do what he felt was best for his daughter, and he didn't want to take any chances and get her any more hurt than she was. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think he was right. Now we're talking. Human mouth is incredibly filthy when it comes to bacteria. Dog bite is reported to be cleaner. Oddly enough, I've heard that. I don't know if I believe it, but I've heard that for sure. Blake, glad to have you in here, man. Thank you for the night of entertainment. We'll try to definitely be on the next live stream. I sure appreciate it, man. Good to have you in here. And yeah, I'd love to. I'm looking forward to seeing those photos you emailed to me. That really, really exciting. And I'll definitely check out that episode of Creep Show. You got my email now. Shoot me an email. Let me know. Let me know which episode it is. I'll definitely check it out and let you know. Um, what season it's on at least? What would you say it was called? Was it? I know it's the John. Uh, Fuck, I'm blanking. What the hell? What was the name of the episode? Anyway, shoot me an email. Let me know, man. It's getting late. We're at the midnight market where I am, 1 a.m. over on the East Coast. But we're having a good time here tonight. They need to check in that underground mine where they filmed. Hey, that's a good point. Man, they got the tax returns and the film records of all of your favorite movies. The film negatives. That's a great scene too. Yeah, great bit of dialogue there. Uh, Aro Pajari says the chimes at the very end of Dawn always freaked me out the most, especially when I had to watch the film late at night alone because my family dominated our TV. Gave me chills. Yeah, like I said, man. First time I visited Monroeville, went to the mall. Last night I was there. I heard those fucking bells out in the distance somewhere as we're walking through the parking lot, getting ready to go back to the hotel and call it a night because like that night was 4th of July and they were having the fireworks display over the mall. And I remember hearing those bells, just like, man, it's so eerily just perfect. It's crazy. Um, have you seen the Roy Frumkin's Dawn of the Dead behind the scenes documentary? It's really good. Yeah, that's one of my all time favorite documentaries. When I was younger and my aspirations and dreams were to grow up to be a filmmaker, that was like, you know, filmmaking 101 for me when I first saw that. It was on IFC. I think it was on. I think they played it either before or after Dawn of the Dead in like 2001. It's either 2001 or 2002. And seeing that, the documentary American Nightmare on IFC, that period there just changed my life, and like that's why I am the way I am today, and that's why I'm into the shit that I'm into. And yeah, I highly recommend it. Document of the Dead. Check it out. Say it's on YouTube. Yeah, checking it. Document of the Dead. Roy Frumkus. Check it out. I had actually met Roy Frumkus. Uh, was it last year? Living Dead weekend. Anyway, super cool guy. But be going on here for about 3 hours, guys. Tonight has been a load of fun. I appreciate everybody in the chat, everybody watching. It's been a great stream, great time watching Dawn. Anytime, any excuse I can give to watch Dawn of the Dead again, I'm going to do it. It's never a bad time to watch Dawn of the Dead, but it's cool to watch it kind of for the first time again. That's I feel like when you love a film, you kind of look for ways to watch it again for the first time. You want to watch a different cut of it, or you want to watch it in open matte 35 millimeter, or you want to watch it in black and white, or you just want to find like for me on my channel, one of the things that I did when I first started doing anything on YouTube was I did my own edited for TV cut of Dawn of the Dead as if it were playing on TV back in the late 70s on like ABC or whatever on like the Sunday night movie. Just because I'd always wondered what would Dawn of the Dead look like edited for TV because that was just unheard of. Um, so yeah, I think it's fun to do that, and it's fun to kind of you know, talk about any and everything Dawn of the Dead. But yeah, like I said, next week I'm going to be shooting for. I got an idea for a Day of the Dead stream for next weekend. Pretty cool little not a game, but uh, a pretty cool idea. We'll just go with that. And then, like I said, I got a lot of stuff leading up for Living Dead weekend this year. Living Dead weekend, of course, is going to be second weekend of June because I think the first weekend, yeah, June 1st is like on a Saturday because planning on having Larry join me that night to talk about Living Dead weekend and getting everybody all the information, getting everybody hyped up for it, and then we'll probably just veer off into 1,000 different directions because man, if anybody knows George and anybody knows if there's one person that I'm like would never play in a game of Romero trivia, it would probably be Larry. So it's gonna be a fun conversation. But yeah, appreciate everybody in the chat. Appreciate all the back and forth here. Good to see everybody. Let me see if we got any other comments here. Yeah, Mayor, Document of the Dead's on the second site, Dawn 4K. Yeah. There's actually, I think there's two cuts of it. There's like a regular cut that's like 80 something minutes, and then there's like an extended cut where he goes on and keeps meeting up with George over the years. I think all the way up through like Land of the Dead. It's called the definitive document of the Dead. But yeah, I highly recommend it. It's really really good. His brother was a zombie that got hit with the pie. Yeah. No, that was actually Roy Frumkus. Was the one that got hit in the face with the pie. Uh, yeah, narrated by Susan Tyrrell. Um, but yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for the great show and chat. You are the Romero master. I do what I can. I'm just a huge nerd like you guys. I just have the will and the patience to hop on here once a week and talk about this shit and give you guys an outlet, somewhere to come and nerd out with me for a few hours. I really appreciate it. Um, Stu, it's good to see you in here again, man. I appreciate everybody. Like I said, be back next weekend. Look forward to that. But until then, you guys have a great rest of the night, a great rest of the week. And as always, stay scared.